Julie Mayfield is not with us tonight. One member of City Council. I just wanted to let everyone know we have an empty seat here. And if you will please take a moment and silence your cell phones. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I gave you that. Is that okay? Good evening, folks. Tonight we have several proclamations, and the first one is National Public Works Week. And I was going to ask Greg Schuler to come on up wherever he is and introduce his folks. So please come forward, and the Vice Mayor is going to present the proclamation.
Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of North Carolina. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees from state and local governments and the private sector. And whereas public works professionals are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in North Carolina to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the theme for this year's celebration is the power of public works. And 2018 marks the 58th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, the Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to 27th, 2018 as National Public Works Week in the City of Asheville, and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. And choose a picture.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I appreciate this opportunity, and I would like for our employees just to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they do every day. Thanks again.
How you guys doing? My name is Hassan Sally. I represent the Stormwater Department. I've been here 8 months, and I help operate the vacuum truck for the SID, big SID truck, and clean out storm drains. Love my job, you know. I'm happy to work for you guys.
How are y'all tonight? I'm Jonathan Ballard. I'm the labor crew supervisor over the ditching crew and stormwater. I've been with the city since August of 2015.
I'm Brian Henderhan. I'm the senior equipment operator for the concrete crew in the streets division. Been here about 1.5 years and love what I do.
I'm Jamone Martin. I've been about 8 months. I work on the brush truck collecting all y'all yard waste.
I'm Kyle Reynolds, sanitation division, been here 3 years. I operate the knuckle booms and automated trucks.
Hi, Colin Fisher. I work with the utility patch and pave crew. Been here for about 1.5 years and enjoying it so far.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Next we have the Building Safety Month, and Ben Woody is here. And Ben, if you've got anyone with you. Please bring them up.
Mark Matheny, our chief code official, was unable to make it tonight, so I'm going to try to stand in for Mark.
Okay. Councilman Keith Young has the proclamation.
All right. Whereas the city of Asheville is committed to recognizing our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a U.S.-based organization that brings together local, state, and federal officials. And whereas our nation benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by national voluntary consensus codes, allowing our government to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown guardians of public safety. And whereas code officials, partners in community safety and economic growth, the theme for Building Safety Month 2017 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction. Now therefore, I, Esther E. Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim May 2018 as Building Safety Month.
Thank you, Councilman Young, and I just want to say thank you to the council for your continued support of the Development Services Department and for your recognition tonight. I think it means a lot to the staff. And I also want to thank the staff for all the hard work they do, along with our customers, to make Asheville a safe and resilient city we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me make sure I remember the order right. Yes. BJ Kapoor is going to present the next proclamation, Tick-Borne Disease Awareness Month. Jane Dooley and Rick Cormier. And if you've got anyone else with your group, please, they're welcome up as well.
You guys can hear me now. So thank you all for being here. I want to let you know my mother also had Lyme disease, and so she's doing fine. She's doing fine, but this impacts a lot of folks around here. So whereas tick-borne diseases such as Lyme disease can be a very serious infection caused by a bacteria, and scientists have identified more strains and species of this bacteria in the southeastern United States than in any other region. And whereas ticks, the vector of Lyme disease, are carried by many different animals, and therefore ticks are frequently encountered by people who live in Asheville. And whereas because ticks can be the size of a poppy seed and also hard to detect, many people who are infected with Lyme disease do not remember being bitten by a tick. And whereas improper methods of removing ticks are dangerous and can actually increase the risk of being affected, and early recognition is needed as prompt treatment and inadequate antibiotic therapy in the early stage may cure Lyme disease and prevent serious complications. And leaving Lyme disease untreated or being inadequately treated for Lyme disease can sometimes lead to death. And whereas Lyme disease can affect the brain, heart, joints, and other organs, and some patients do not develop the characteristic rash, and symptoms may not appear for months or even years following the initial infection. And patients are often misdiagnosed with more familiar conditions. And whereas citizens should know that testing for tick-borne diseases such as Lyme disease may be inaccurate, and with over a dozen tick-borne diseases in the southeastern United States, everyone is urged to take all tick bites seriously. Now, therefore, I, Esther E. Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim May 2017 as Tick-Borne Diseases Awareness Month in the City of Asheville, and implore all citizens to practice personal preventative techniques when engaging in outdoor activities, such as frequent full-body tick checks, using various methods to repel and avoid ticks, and proper tick removal techniques. In witness whereof, I am hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Asheville, North Carolina to be affixed this 15th day of May 2018.
Thank you. So I'd like to present you with a few things to share with the council.
And if you want to pass them out, if Maggie will pass them out.
And council, thank you very much for having us. This is some information we'd like to donate to the city.
Please read it. Everybody read this. We want this education in the school so badly. We're going to emphasize this time psychiatric line. Is there a possibility there is a connection to tick bites and opioid crisis, mass shootings, military suicides? I have lesions in my brain, just like they do, from the IEDs. How do we know for sure? There's no test. So we're giving you some psychiatric line information. Hopefully you could give that to the Sheriff's Department. We've already passed out 1,900 of the last year's proclamation from you. But if you would pass them to the appropriate places. And the big news is this year, we now have a federal group, Tick-Borne Diseases Working Group in DC, and they have 53 members in just a matter of months. Hopefully, they can expose this problem that's been hidden far too long, 43 years, I think, hidden. So anyway, thank you so much. You have no idea how many people receive this proclamation that we copy at the Arboretum, in Walmart, wherever we go. People appreciate it. You saw last week's news. 13 years, it's tripled. We got to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
The next proclamation is National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and I've got Elizabeth Leonard on my list, but if there's anybody else here who wants to come forward for this proclamation, this is the time. Okay, I'll read the proclamation, and then if anybody wants to say a few words. Looks like you have some words. Maybe. No, you don't have any words. Okay. Whereas every day 96 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries. And whereas supporting the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people. And whereas in January of 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade, was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should be now celebrating her 21st birthday. And whereas to help honor Hadia and the 96 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 1st, 2018, the first Friday in June, as the 4th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 1st, the first Friday in June in 2018, to help raise awareness about gun violence and to honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby designate Friday, June 1st, 2018 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the City of Asheville. And I call upon all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the effect of gun violence, and to honor and value human lives.
Hi there, my name is Ariel Jacobson, and I'm a senior at A.C. Reynolds High School. I'm continuing my education at the University of Asheville, North Carolina. University of North Carolina, Asheville, sorry about that. And I am one of the leads of the Students Demand Action chapter we have in Asheville. Like the mayor was saying, we have an event on June 1st and June 2nd. On June 1st, we're having a scavenger hunt downtown from 5:30 to 7:30, something like that. Where we'll meet at the block off Biltmore, and you can just kind of go with the group, and you'll learn about statistics and stuff that have to do with gun violence prevention. And then to celebrate the lives that have been lost from gun violence on June 2nd at Highland Brewing in the Meadow from 12:30 to 4:30, we're having like a human foosball tournament. So it's just kind of a fun, family-friendly event to celebrate those lives who have been taken from gun violence. We think this is a really important issue, and these young women here organized the March for Our Lives in Asheville event with me, and we've done so much work for this. We're very passionate about it, and we know and we do believe that we are going to make a change. I see a lot of young people in the audience, and I really urge them, it's like weird I'm not talking to you guys, but it's I really urge you all to get involved. I think this is something that we can all agree at the end of the day. This is something that children and all people should not be afraid of. And I think it's really important for us to come together and become empowered to put this issue to an end. So thank you very much.
Okay, that is the end of our proclamations for this evening, but we do have an announcement. I'm going to ask the City Manager, Kathy Ball, to give us some information that we thought we could squeeze in right here.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Sean Smoot. Mr. Smoot is here with the company 21st Century Policing. We have brought them on board, and he is representing them tonight in looking at the incident, the rush incident that occurred from August the 25th through the investigation of it from 2017. So he is in town this week and assisting, and he's done some research, read some policies, but he's now in the process of actually doing the on-the-ground work. So we want to acknowledge that he is in town and working on this assessment.
And tell us again the name of the organization.
The name of his company, and I don't know, Sean, if you want to come on up and introduce your company. 21st Century Policing LLC is the name of his company, but if you want to do a brief introduction, that would be great.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be before you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As we are speaking and meeting here this evening, I'm here with a team of folks. There are a couple other consultants here that are actually riding along with officers this very night. We have undergone start to our assessment of the department's policies and procedures, and we'll be meeting with the police department, administration, training, professional standards, and of course the chief over the next couple of days, and as well as rank and file officers, and continuing our review. We anticipate that our review will be completed toward the end of July, and I look forward to presenting the results of our report to you at that time. Just by way of introduction and background myself, I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Illinois, also licensed before the United States Supreme Court. I do a lot of police reform work across the country. I serve on the monitoring teams in Baltimore and Cleveland, which are both under federal consent decrees, and then work with police departments all over the United States. I served on President Obama's task force on 21st century policing as well. So, thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, comments, any item we need to pull out of the consent agenda, or do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the motion to approve the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We have a number of presentations tonight. Thank you, mass staff exodus, and now that this consent agenda has been approved. We do have, can we bring some people up to these seats or no? We have more people cycling in. We have some available seats up front if anybody would like to come utilize them. The first presentation tonight is the City of Asheville Youth Leadership Academy, and Erica Germer is here, who is going to help us through this process. I just want to mention before these folks come up that CALA, or what's known as the City of Asheville Youth Leadership Academy, is a program the city has run since 2007. This is an opportunity for young adults, high school students, to spend some time in internships that will help us realize their talents and what they can contribute to our community, and also gives them an opportunity to earn scholarship money. So this has been a really neat program now for 11 years, and I appreciate you all coming down tonight so we can honor you and your accomplishments. And Erica, if you'll come up, I know we have a few student speakers, and I know now we're pretty jam-packed with young people in here, so everyone associated with CALA is free to come up as well.
Sure. Good evening, City Council and Mayor Manheimer. Thank you so much for continuing to support this program. I heartfeltly thank you. I'm honored to do this job every day. So without further ado, I'm going to call up 5 presenters, and then the rest of the students are going to file kind of in a circle behind them, if that's okay, just so that they can also be represented. So if I could have Caitlin Stray and Jasmine Riddle and Isabel Arredondo and Rihanna Innes and Devin Boston. Come on up. That's not the order they're going to speak in.
Yeah, that sounds great. Or here, maybe. Just move up.
Or they can come this way.
Yeah, we can spread all over. There you go.
Good.
Now you're good. Now you're good.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabel. I'm a senior at the School of Inquiry and Life Sciences at Asheville. And as of today, I'll be a CALA alumni, which is sad to say. But I will be continuing my studies at Western Carolina University, trying to get my prerequisites for physical therapy. I've been in the CALA program for about 2 years now. My first internship was at Habitat for Humanity, and the second one was at Mountain True. CALA has opened up a bunch of doors for me. You know, it shows us young people, it takes us out into the community, into jobs like maybe our typical job would be like McDonald's or something like that, but it takes us into the actual adult world where you have to deal with numbers and papers and filing and just a bunch of stuff, really. But what really I loved about CALA was our Friday workshops, was where we all came together and we talked about certain issues. Like we had a MLK Youth Summit in the year of 2016. And what we did is we brought in, my table was with police brutality, and I actually had 2 officers come in and talk to young people with the community so we could see both sides. And I just think something like that was so empowering, especially for us. And having Miss Erica, of course, lead us. She's great, by the way. You guys chose a perfect person to do this. But yeah, on Fridays we volunteered at Manna Food Bank. We would go out to ropes course and really try to build the team, what we were trying to accomplish. But other than that, it was eye-opening. It was great. I'm gonna miss it, and I thank you guys for supporting this, anything. But thank you so much. Have a nice afternoon.
Hi, my name is Devin, and I'm also a SILSA senior, and I've also done Kayla for 2 years. I did apply my freshman year, and what I liked about Kayla is that it helped me get into the real world and be an adult of facing rejection, that you're not always going to get what you want every time, and it helped me work on myself and get better and apply my sophomore year. And I ended up working at Leaf, and then this past summer I worked at Omni Grove Park. And I also learned as an adult that you're not always going to do what you like to do. I got the chance to kind of like work in the backgrounds of just filing papers and realizing that as an adult you're going to have to do a lot of paperwork, which I realized is not for me, so there will be no job going into that for me. But I'm so thankful that Kayla gave me the opportunity, because when I was younger I did want to be a social worker and someone that did work in the office, and I actually got the experience for it and seen that that was not for me. So I'm going to be continuing my education at UNCG, and I'm going to become a nurse practitioner and then later on become a pediatrician. And I'm so thankful that I got to work with Miss Erica and the whole Kayla family to just become a better person and to grow in maturity. So, yeah.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Riddle. I'm also a senior at SILSA. I've also been a part of Kayla for 2 years. My first year in Kayla, I had an internship at the Light of Home summer camp. I wasn't too excited about that when I found out I was going to be working there, because I didn't really like kids. But throughout the summer, I learned that it was fun working with the kids, and I was actually kind of good at it. And then my second internship was at the MAHEC in the Human Resources Department. And it was pretty cool because I got to explore the different aspects of healthcare. I was able to job shadow nurses and go on job interviews and review resumes and do phone screens, so it was pretty fun. Then a major aspect of Kayla that's important to me and has been beneficial to me is the connections and support that we received through Kayla. This past year, applying for scholarships and college applications, I've had to write a lot of essays, and Erica has been a big support in reviewing and revising the essays for me. And so one essay that she helped me with, I was able to submit it, and I actually won a full ride scholarship to UNCG off of that essay, so that was very beneficial. So I'll be majoring in biology at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro in the fall, and I'm very excited for that and thankful for Kayla.
Hello, my name is Rihanna, and I attend School of Inquiry Life Sciences at Asheville. I've also been in Kayla for 2 years. My first year, I interned at Children First Communities and Schools, and then my second year, I interned at Care Partners. When I first got into Kayla, I thought it was going to be, mostly just about working and receiving the scholarship money. But then I realized it was so much more to that. Not only did I mature as a person, I realized the importance of punctuality, just communicating with different people, and most importantly, community service. I love the fact that Kayla requires us to have 20 hours of community service. And I know that it went from me just doing it to get the 20 hours to me actually loving what I'm doing, loving giving back to the community. One of my favorite activities would have to be when we volunteered at the Steadfast Women's Shelter. Not only was I giving back to them and cooking for the women and the kids, but it also made me realize that I need to be grateful and humble for what I have and what's been going on in my life. Kayla has just opened so many doors for me. I thank Erica so much for coming in our classroom helping us with everything. She's made me realize, you know, how grateful I am to be in Asheville. I know just being here 18 years, I was just feeling like I'm just ready to go, but I love it here. I do plan on coming back eventually. I'll be continuing my studies at East Carolina University, majoring in nursing, and I do plan on getting involved in their community and continue on giving back to the community as well. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. My name is Caitlin Stray. I'd like to start off by congratulating my Kayla mates for making it this far. We're almost done, guys. We're about to graduate. I'd also like to thank Erica because this year she's been so helpful to me and just everything she's been able to do as far as resources and networking and, of course, this internship. So I met Erwin. This was the first year that Kayla opened up to county schools, so I was sort of the guinea pig in this, as well as a few others. So again, I'm at Erwin. I am going to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro to pursue a business degree. I'm very interested in hospitality and tourism. So over the summer, I was placed at the Chamber of Commerce in Explore Asheville. And there I did get my fair share of filing and paperwork. But I really enjoyed it because not only was I in an office and working with the people at the Chamber and Explore Asheville, I was out there exploring, new hotels. I got to tour the AC Hotel before it opened, and as well with the Hampton, the New Hampton in the Biltmore Village. Kayla has helped me accomplish goals for myself that I did have set and goals that I didn't even dreamed of. I haven't even planned for myself. And after the internship was over, Erica has stayed in touch with me, and she had set up an interview with Robert Foster, who is the general manager at DoubleTree by Hilton. There I was hired as a front desk agent, and forever I will be thankful for Erica for that. It's just surreal to me that I am working at a hotel at such a young age, starting a career that I really want to pursue, with hopes of one day that I will own a hotel. Erica has just given me so many resources. She also encouraged me to apply to the Horatio Alger Association. I did receive the North Carolina Scholar, which is $10,000 over 4 years. And again, I will be forever thankful for this program, and I wish it success with the years to come. Thank you.
I just wasn't sure if the City Council wants me to read names or what.
We would love to. I think in years past, right, for your seniors, if they want to tell us their names and where they're going to school.
That sounds great. Erica, we're going to start with you, and then we'll just kind of go around the loop. Real quick, though.
My name is Erica Howard, and I'm going to North Carolina A&T, and I'm a major in psychology.
Hello, my name is Zion Walker. I go to SOSA, and I'm going to Wingate, where I'm going to major in physics and become an engineer.
Hi everyone, my name is Keenan Hines. I go to SOSA. I will be attending Western Carolina University in the fall, and I will be majoring in athletic training.
Hello. Okay, my name is Dana Campbell. I'm also a senior at SOSA, and I'll be attending Wingate University, and I'll be studying psychology.
My name is Kelby Vargas, and I'm going to be attending UNCA, and I'm going to go undecided. So.
Hey again. My name is Rihanna. I'm going to East Carolina University, and I'll be majoring in nursing.
My name is D'Angelo Collins, and I will be attending Winston-Salem State University, and I will major in social work.
That's a good choice.
My name is Miracle Gates. I go to SOSA, and I'll be going to Winston-Salem State University, and I'll be majoring in nursing.
Hello, my name is Oliverto, and I'm going to go to AP Tech, and I want to be a mechanic.
Hi, my name is Fasaya Bashran. I just graduated from AB Tech this Saturday, and I'll be continuing my education at UNCA with a major in political science.
Hi, my name is Ayana Hyatt. I'm a senior at Asheville High. I'm going to North Carolina A&T, and I'm majoring in child development and family studies.
My name is Jasmine Riddle, and I'll be going to UNCG to study biology.
It's me again. I'm Isabel, and I'll be going to Western Carolina and getting my prerequisites for physical therapy.
My name is Fatima Gonzalez. I'll be attending Western Carolina University and go into nursing, then probably lead up to medicine. So.
Hello, my name is Anoam Quiñones, and I'm going to study at UNCA with a major in biology.
My name is Ariana Moore, and I'll be going to Appalachian State University and majoring in public health.
My name is Taekwondre Bates, and I'll be going to Western Carolina to major in accounting.
My name is Tyler Jackson, and I'll be going to West Carolina University and majoring in biology.
My name is Caitlin Strait. I am going to UNCG to study business.
My name is Devin Boston, and I'm going to UNCG to study nursing.
All right, congratulations
Thank you.
all of you. Thank you for coming down here. I know all the CALA folks are leaving, but just for everyone's edification, the CALA program is obviously pretty fabulous. And the way it works is the city funds the internship positions, and each of those interns actually make a living wage, not a minimum wage. So it's a really awesome program, and this is our first year where students in the county schools are, they have access to this program. So we have 40 students for this summer going into the program, and maybe it's time for us to think about how to expand that, maybe in partnership with the county. Add that to the list.
So, Mayor, the county does participate in funding
they do.
with
Maybe
us.
they can-
They participate.
Yeah.
So I needed to point that out.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is to have a presentation of the operating budget, and our CFO, Barbara Whitehorn, is going to do that. Just so everyone knows the process, we've done several work sessions, and Barbara will go over our timeline, I bet, of what we've been doing, but the public hearing on the budget will be set for our next meeting, which happens to be in 1 week from tonight. So this is the presentation, but the opportunity to speak on the budget will happen in 1 week. So Barbara, please take it away.
All right, Mayor, members of council, again, Barbara Whitehorn, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the city. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this year's budget. The budget process obviously begins for staff much earlier than March 20th, but for council, the operating budget process began in March. The capital budget process was completed in January, as I'm sure you all recall. And for staff, budget began in September and is now finally wrapping up in May. So we don't have a lot of time in between budgets. But we are at the proposed budget presentation. You all have copies, I believe, of the proposed budget. And we did go a little on the cheap on the printing deliberately, trying to save a little money. So there aren't a lot of copies, and they're not quite as slick as sometimes they are. So this is where we are today. Public hearing next week, a work session if it's necessary, if there are questions today that we need to answer, if there are things that need to be changed. And then budget adoption is scheduled for the June meeting on June 19th. Okay, so key budget facts. I'm not going to go into great detail because you all have seen great detail over the course of 3 work sessions. The total general fund budget is $124.2 million. That is a 2.9% increase over the prior year. The property tax rate, there is no change at 42.89 cents. And use of fund balance is anticipated to be $471,000. And then the unassigned fund balance as a percent of the proposed budget, we are estimating at 16.81. So just to kind of remind you, the programs and initiatives that the Blue Ribbon Task Force recommended that are funded in this budget, we have the Human Rights Commission, to address issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion in our city staff.
It's human relations, but...
Oh, that's, that's because I'm on the HRC, the other one?
Yeah.
My bad. Sorry, Human Relations Commission, and I do know that, and I apologize. And the Equity Office, so funding for the development of the Equity Office with 3 additional staff under the leadership of Kimberly Archie. So I apologize for getting that wrong. And then with the Asheville Redefines Transit, we have a transit planner funded and replacement buses, 3 electric and 2 diesel funded for this next year. Fee changes, and this actually, the parking fee changes that are proposed in the budget are on your agenda to be voted on tonight. What staff has proposed is that in and out within an hour remain free. However, all parking over 1 hour pays the first hour, and the $800,000 that is estimated to generate will be allocated to transit. We also recommend that the monthly rates in the parking garages are increased by $10 per month, and the daily max be increased to $12. And that will probably generate about $100,000 also to be allocated to transit. And here we are at the process again. So questions?
You're at the end of your presentation.
I am at the end of my presentation.
So this is, again, just presentation. So we do have one item that we actually have to vote on, but other than that.
Yes. Barbara, is the proposed budget online?
I think so, yes. Yes, okay, yes.
So people who want
yes, absolutely.
Go into gory detail on
all of it. It is all in there, and staff is happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Anybody else have any questions? Again, this is the presentation. The public hearing on this will be next week. And then council will vote on the budget at our 1 meeting in June. We only have 1 meeting on the 19th of June. So we do have one. Normally we vote on the fees and charges package as a package, but we have one item that we did not include in the fees and charges package, and that is the parking fee you mentioned. Do you need us to take action on that?
Yes, that's an ordinance, a change to the fee ordinance to make those proposed changes. I can go back up there so you can see this.
So we have it attached to our agenda. You've got it.
What, the resolution?
Yeah, so we need a resolution to adopt the ordinance establishing the attached fees and charges regarding city parking garages to be effective July 1, 2018. Do I have a motion?
A motion for staff to recommend City Council to adopt the ordinance establishing attached changes to fees and charges within the city parking garages effective July 1st, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So I'm trying to remember how we do this in terms of public comment, because we did the, do I take public comment on this now? Yes, because we did that on fees and charges before. Okay, if there's anyone here, and any council member also, this will be an opportunity to comment on the motion to adopt the fees regarding parking that are on the overhead projector.
Okay. I would just like to say here that I do not support the revision in the first hour free policy, and therefore will be voting against this.
Okay, and if there's anyone else? Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, just to kind of put this in context. I know this is the presentation of the budget, which took about 3 minutes, so everyone's probably sitting here being incredibly underwhelmed, and I guess the real discussion will be happening next week in the public comment. But just in terms of putting this in the context, I mean, we've received emails from folks, some downtown folks being concerned about changing this and the impact it may have. I'm going to be supporting this. I think it's something that is important. Folks clearly are not interested in seeing a tax increase, and you're looking at $800,000 allocated to transit, and so the gap that we would need to fill would be quite significant in my view. The other thing I think for some of the folks who may be feeling that downtown is taking a hit in some respects, there's a couple of other things that we are having to fund this year. Number one is we've only funded half of the transit increase that occurred last year. That happened in January. We've got to fund that for the full year. The other thing out there too is that there is a council direction here to create a downtown district for the police, which is also going to be costing money over the years. So I realize there may be some folks here in the downtown area that are concerned or feel like they're sort of taking a hit on that. But in my view here, that this is important to the budget. This is important to maintaining our transit system and expanding it, and I think it's a reasonable way of funding it.
And the other thing is, I think it continues to come up as a question, like why do we charge parking in downtown at meters, et cetera, when across the city we don't? So if we have agreement on that, would like the city staff to go back and kind of relook at where parking is metered in the city and where it isn't, and kind of come up with the justification for the difference with why downtown versus no place else in the city.
Or a recommendation to look at metering other
Right.
parts of the city. So for example, Biltmore Village is not metered. West Asheville is not metered. The River Arts District is not metered. Biltmore Park is not metered. So there are a lot of areas of the city that aren't metered that also see retail customers and other visitors. And so we've talked about this over the years, but for whatever reason haven't seen a comprehensive proposal come forward. And I know if you visit other cities, you'll notice those kinds of areas typically are metered in cities our size or larger. So I think that's a good point. But we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments from council before I ask for any? If there's anyone here who wants to speak on this issue, this is your opportunity. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name first and watch the lights on the lectern. They will indicate when you need to stop speaking. Anyone? Parking?
Hi, my name is Karen Ramshaw, and when I was coming over here, there was a car that had a bumper sticker, and it said, "Love Asheville, go local." And we all know that the highest concentration of locally owned businesses is downtown. And there's always a big complaint all over the city that that downtown is turning into a tourist area. Well, this kind of policy is just making it worse. It's already hard enough for us to come downtown, and there is no other place to park. You know, the council has not voted to provide the infrastructure we need downtown. And, you know, in 1980, people all across the city stood up and said that they cared about downtown, and they didn't want to tear it down. And it feels to me that this kind of policy is just contributing to the loss of something that people have worked very, very hard since 1980 to rebuild. And I just feel that downtown needs to be for everybody, not just, you know, people who can afford it. Thank you.
And just to clarify before our next speaker, I think that does raise a good point. The council did alter this slightly. It was first to eliminate first hour free for everyone, but now the proposal actually is to eliminate the first hour free for those who park beyond an hour. So if you're, you know, if you're someone who's just needs to jump in someplace and pick up your stuff, or, you know, you're making a 30-minute trip downtown, your first hour will still be free. So that's a little bit confusing, but we made that change at our more recent work session. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Dee Williams, Mayor and City Council. One of the things that I would ask that you do is to come up with a more sustainable way to pay for increases, not necessarily a business improvement district, because that means that property taxes and everything else are going to go up, and that does work against locally owned small businesses. There needs to be a wholly dedicated fund to pay for everything from multimodal transit, and it needs to have a long-range view. And hopefully you'll start now, because you cannot keep increasing fees on parking and things like that. I don't even know if there's money in there to improve or to pay for capital costs that are accrued to keep the buildings. The buildings, the parking garages downtown in some places look pretty awful, and so I would say to you that there needs to be a more sustainable approach paid to it, a more long-range view, and it's becoming increasingly unaffordable for locally owned small businesses, such that you'll be, whether or not you realize it, bringing in nothing but national chain. So please do think in terms of sustainability and multimodal and wholly dedicated funding sources. Thank you so much.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, so we have a motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Okay. That concludes our matter on fees and charges and the budget presentation. Thank you, Barbara. The next one, the next presentation we have tonight is the bond process and financial update, and Pete Wall is here to make that presentation.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of council. My name is Peter Wall. I'm a Parks Program Manager for the Capital Projects Department. Jade is out of town tonight, so I'll be filling in to provide a brief update on the overall bond program. So we'll be providing a snapshot of where we are overall for the year for the parks and transportation projects. So to start, I'd like to give an overview of the capital projects phases and how we basically move each project from conceptualization to operations through that process. So the first phase of that is project prioritization.
Excuse me, could you make the bigger and eliminate the notes? Yeah, it's pretty hard to read.
Yeah, no, and I don't expect you to read that. I think it was in your packets, I hope.
Right.
You got that in your packets. We won't linger too long on this. I know there's a lot of words in there. We're going to move forward pretty quickly past this. But the capital projects department is organized around mainly this middle body of phases here, which is the project planning, design, and construction phases. And I'll discuss these in more detail as we move to the next one. And then, of course, operations, when we hand that back over to the operating departments. So as I mentioned, project planning, site design, and construction. Those are the three main buckets, if you will, of where the Capital Projects Department will oversee those for the departments. So focusing on project planning, obviously this is the phase where we're deciding high-level project information, concepts through staff interaction and interaction with the public. This process usually takes several months to years depending upon the complexity of the project. And efforts include project concepts, initial budgeting, community input, and identification of project challenges. So current projects in this phase of the bond are Memorial Stadium, which we're going through a consultant selection process now for that project. Dr. Wesley Grant Southside Center, again, we're also going through a consultant selection process right now for that project. Parks land acquisition and road resurfacing phase 3. So currently the value of the projects in the planning phase are about $28.5 million. The next phase as we move forward would be the site planning and design phase. So this is where we would refine the scopes, those vision, goals, and objectives that were identified in the planning phase and develop a set of construction drawings to actually design and bid and then build the project. So with a well-defined scope and depending upon project complexity, again, this process can take several months to several years. Products of this initial effort are refining the budget, bid documents to bid the projects, acquisition and easements, and construction agreements. So current examples include the sports court, which is on consent agenda tonight, which will move into construction and completion eventually in fall of this year. Tempe Avery Mofford Complex, we recently received bids for that project, and that'll be forthcoming. Hill Street Sidewalk Project and Airport Road. So projects currently in this phase are about $12.5 million. Final phase would be construction. Obviously, this is the phase where we'll be building the projects that meet the planning and design expectations identified in the prior phases. Projects in this phase of work are typically completed in one year, or one season, excuse me, April to November, due to the climate that we have here in Asheville, and can take multiple years depending upon project complexity. So products of this effort include new or refurbished infrastructure. And this phase obviously has the most impact to citizens, so we want to reach out to those local businesses and residents and have an open communication plan for each of these projects moving forward. Current examples are Martin Luther King Drive, to be completed this month, Phase 1B surfacing, bus shelters, which is about 50% complete, and traffic calming, which is about 30% complete. So projects currently in this phase are about $7.5 million of the bond. So Martin Luther King Drive, as I mentioned before, this is what it looked like before the resurfacing work started. And then, of course, this is in progress. This was a couple of weeks ago while we were preparing this presentation. And then also just to direct y'all's attention to the Capital Projects dashboard, which has all that information. And recently I wanted to thank the IT department because they just added another indicator there, which is under contract. So we're trying to improve the transparency in the dashboard. And that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
Can you tell people how to get to that dashboard from the website?
So
we have a lot of projects going on.
We have a lot of projects going on, and the easiest way to do it is asheville.nc.gov/bonds. And that will actually take you to the bond program, which also has links to project pages as well as the Capital Projects dashboard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, we have one other presentation. Yep, Peggy Rowe, who is currently our, Peggy, what is your current title? You're
Interim Assistant City Manager.
Yes, Interim Assistant City Manager, formerly HR Director.
Yes.
Peggy's going to give us an update on the city manager recruitment process.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm excited to share with you what we have done so far and what you can look forward to in the future with regard to our search for the new city manager. You might recall that we did an RFP in April, it's actually in March, and selected Springstead Waters to assist us in our search for our new city manager. They are out of Texas, and we had 9 responses, all very capable search firms, and selected Springstead really based on their ability and their comparable searches that they've done with cities of our size, their costs, their national approach, and their commitment to diversity. And those were some of the characteristics that we looked hard for in deciding who to go with. We have public engagement meetings. We have already conducted one May 10th, and we actually had 2 meetings on May 10th where we sought input from members of the city, the residents in the city, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. We have some, based on your request, we've planned a great deal of activities for the residents to have the opportunity to weigh in on the kind of profile you want to see with your next city manager. That includes city engagement opportunities, and we have meetings scheduled the 17th with our employees. People are invited to come and give input as to what they want to see in their next city manager. Recruitment should begin sometime early June, and then we'll begin to look at preliminarily some candidates. We'll have final interviews in July, hopefully announce late summer who the new city manager is, with the opportunity for them to begin sometime in the fall. There is a survey that residents can take to give input, and it can be found on the website, which I'll access here in just a minute. There also are physical copies available for residents who prefer paper in the recreation and community centers. There's a hotline for folks to call and give input. If you want to access the website, it is on the projects page. There's a city manager search page, and if you go to Open City Hall Asheville, that's where you can access the actual survey itself. And there are just really 2 questions in the survey. We've had some response already. And their questions ask the residents to describe the qualities in their ideal candidate and who the folks in the city are that the new manager should work closely with. And there's no limit to how much input citizens and residents can give to those questions. Again, we had public meetings May 10th in the south part of town. We have a downtown meeting scheduled this Saturday. Folks are welcome to come. We have interpretive services available at all public meetings. We have child care available for ages 5 and up at all public meetings. Next steps, again, I mentioned earlier, we have focus groups with the staff. The search firm will be here next week, 23rd, 24th, 25th. They will meet with each of you to hear from you all what your ideal candidate looks like. They'll also have opportunities to meet with key staff members. They'll begin to create the brochure, and the national search will begin. Other opportunities for community participation, again, the ones I mentioned, but also you all have provided, and some will still provide, some leaders in the community, names of leaders in the community that you want to have participate in helping and assist the agency in culling the applications, as well as serving on interview panels to get you 3 to 5 final candidates that you'll select as your next city manager. So with that, what questions can I answer? Anything I need to clarify?
So Peggy,
Yes,
just to
ma'am.
clarify on the survey, people can fill those out anonymously? They don't need
Yes.
to put their name on that?
That is correct. The first question is whether or not you want to include your name. You don't have to.
And how many people participated? I'm trying to publicly shame people who didn't show up. For the May 10th meeting, how many people showed up for our 2 meetings?
We did not have a great turnout at that meeting. And to be fair, we probably didn't give people enough advance notice, though they have plenty of advance notice now for the Saturday meeting. But we have stated that we will add an additional community meeting if we need to do that. But probably about 12.
So get out there, give us feedback.
All right, thank you.
Do you have a scheduled date for the new date for the community engagement part?
Well, I have to thank my communications and public engagement partners in making all this happen. So I'll ask Dawa, is there a backup date for our community meeting? Okay. And that may be something we'll visit with the search firm representative next week when they come.
Because that was a major concern from community, that they didn't have enough time to plan.
Sure. And we're happy to add additional meetings as needed. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, so that ends the presentations and reports on our printed agenda. I'm going to squeeze in an item here because it has to do with legislation, and we don't have much time because the legislature is going into session tomorrow. So when we put together our list of all the different kinds of things we wanted to do following the Mr. Rush incident, one of the things we had on our list was a request to the legislature for a set of legislation that would help us better, it would strengthen our tools for us as a council and us as a city to implement change that better reflects the direction of our community. And so on that list were several different items, and I've got some, but some of it was suggested legislation. You will see on our agenda later on tonight, there is an item, a resolution regarding the Citizen Police Advisory Committee, and that resolution would call for the elimination of the current CPAC, or Citizen Police Advisory Committee. Right now, the city is underway with the creation of a Human Relations Commission. As of today, we received 33 applications for that commission. So coupled with that, this package of legislation would request that the legislature enact a local bill that would allow us to have a citizen review committee that better reflects what the community has advised us they want and we want, which is a citizen review committee that can actually do something instead of just make a recommendation. The legislation includes the power of the citizen review committee to make binding decisions, to have subpoena power, to look at personnel records, to be able to view body cam footage, with confidentiality agreement, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But in other words, a CPAC that has the teeth that the community is concerned about. This bill applies to Asheville. Our proposed bill that we would ask the legislature for applies to Asheville, but it is modeled after House Bill 165, which was introduced last session. That bill did not make crossover, which means it never crossed over from the House to the Senate, so it's effectively dead. But it is a model that would have, it is a bill that would have applied statewide. And I contacted one of the sponsors of that bill and I said, you know, is this bill going to move? Are you guys going to scoop this bill out and put it in something else that actually has any traction? And he said, no, but you could come and ask for a local bill that uses the same concept. So that's what is drafted here. Because we have a civil service board already in existence in Asheville, the creation of a citizen review committee that actually has the power to make binding and appealable decisions because of due process, it does not work to also have a civil service board. So you will see coupled with this the elimination of the civil service board. That is a big change. That would be a big change for the governing systems here for the city. And one that will take a lot of conversation. But again, this was based on the meetings we've had and the discussions we've had. In addition, the requested legislation we also included here is an exception that would apply to Asheville for the body cam state law, which does not, as you know, allow city councils to review body cam footage, nor does it allow a citizen review board to look at body cam footage. This would create exceptions for the city council and a citizen review board, if one were created, to be able to see that body cam footage if we signed a confidentiality agreement. The reason that is in there, and I don't like that either, but the reason that is in there is because the legislature was about this close last session to passing a reform to the current state law on body cam footage access. And when it went to the floor of the House, it included a provision that would allow city councils and citizen review boards, if applicable, to review body cam footage if a confidentiality agreement was signed. And an amendment was offered on the floor to strip that provision out, and it passed 59 to 57, which means it was really close. And we're hearing that there may be some interest to revisit that. So that council statewide could see the body cam footage, but it's clear that the legislature will not consider it without some kind of confidentiality provision. Nevertheless, if that were to come to fruition, the state law that allows city councils to then appeal to the courts or to petition the courts to have that body cam footage provided to the public, which we've already done once before, would still be a vehicle. So if the council signed that confidentiality, viewed that body cam footage and said, you know what, we need to go to court to get this out in the public, we would still have that opportunity. We're talking a lot of hypotheticals here, but I'm really just trying to explain to you what this package of legislation includes, and I got a copy for each of you all. Each one is a separate package, and we'll make these available. And I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing any one of them, I think. This isn't anything to vote on. This is just to let you know that we're following through on the to-do list of different things that we wanted to do. You heard already tonight about the third-party review of APD, but this is the package of legislation. I'm sorry, and it also includes a bill that would ask that, as some of you may know, currently, if you file a complaint against someone in APD, because of the personnel laws 160-168, the results of your complaint may not be disclosed to you because it concerns what's considered to be private personnel matters. So that's a little bit of a bizarre result. So we ask again for legislation that applies just to Asheville that's modeled after Greensboro's model, which would allow a complainant to actually hear the results of their complaint, whether disciplinary action was taken or whatever the results were, that complainant would be allowed to learn that information. So that's the third piece that you'll see in this package. Anybody have any questions?
Well, I mean, just one thing there, if I may. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing this, and I want to be collegial here, but these are significant legislative priorities, and as a council member, this wasn't even on the agenda. So you know, my take on this right now, I know we've discussed these things conceptually, but I mean, there's significant aspects of it, and the fact that it's sort of being, honestly, these are, in my view, sprung on us now. I understand there's time-wise, but this could have been shared with us before, and just as a council member, that the process of this bothers me. It really does. I mean, there's significant changes in here. That some I agree with, some I've got some concerns about, but we are putting this forth as if it is the entire body's perspective on our legislative priorities, having not had an ability to sit down in any sort of governance committee, which I believe is how this was done in the past, and just being passed out to us now. So I mean, I just want to note that as a concern of mine, just process-wise, that's a concern of mine.
And I will say that this legislation as drafted is really just a reflection of the discussion we had on a council level about how we wanted to make changes in the city. And so, you know, agreed that when we looked at that list of items, it was much more conceptual. This is the actual drafting of those concepts. So sometimes when people say, yeah, I agree with X, and then you actually see what the product is, you might not feel comfortable with it. But I will say the personnel disclosure information here, the body cam footage changes, a lot of that we had talked about. The creation of a citizen review board that has actual authority as well. But we unfortunately have short time because the legislature is going into session tomorrow. However, the bill drafting deadline is not until May 25th. So I would be glad to have a governance committee meeting next Tuesday. No, governance committee, what do you think?
Well, no, if everyone else sees fit, but that's fine. I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, it's supposed to be a really short session. Like
yes,
lightning
yes.
fast.
I think anytime you ask the legislature for legislation, whether or not they'll consider it and pass it is a whole other ballgame. And they have already said, heads up, everyone, this is a lightning fast session. Although apparently they will have time to pass Senator Edwards' local districting bill. So maybe they'll have time for our bills.
Well, that's even more reason for why we should have had this earlier than right now, is my view. I mean,
So BJ, if you would like, what we will do is we can have a governance committee next week and consider the bills then and put them on the agenda for consideration, and then that way the public can also have a chance to look at them as well, and take action officially at that point. Would that be acceptable?
Has staff weighed into, has staff?
Yeah, I've met, they staff drafted these. Yeah.
So I'll say this. Governance consists of the mayor, myself, and Councilwoman Shanika Smith. I'll speak for myself only. I'm thrilled with the legislation that hopefully will be entered into this short session. I think it addresses a lot of the concerns of individuals in the community that wanted to see when we talked about CPAC and we talked about HRC and all these different things that culminated in the city of Asheville within the last couple of years. These were the types of conversations that have been going on for quite some time, and I think this is what a majority of some individuals in the community want to see put forward. They want to see us as a city moving forward, putting our best foot forward, and making every effort to address the concerns that they have asked us to address, especially when eliminating our CPAC and putting together a Human Relations Commission that will have some teeth and give the city of Asheville a great deal of tools, as the mayor mentioned, in his toolbox that will help us be able to alleviate some of the issues that are in our community. And I think this does a really good job of that. I think this is the city of Asheville's best foot forward to approach the things when we tell folks it's not on our plate to do it because the General Assembly won't allow us to do it, but trying to work with the General Assembly and go through the proper channels of allowing the city of Asheville to do what it needs to do to make our community better. I think this is one of the best vehicles to do that, and so I'm thrilled and I'm happy to support it. If we need to have that meeting next Tuesday, and then so be it, and we'll move from there.
I'd be glad to do that, absolutely. Any other questions?
I agree with what's being presented here, but I think it goes back to us just getting real comfortable with a process. And I think we've seen that a couple times this year where we really haven't been able to weigh in totally on a lot of things before we've had to make the decision. And as a new council member, I would like to sit with things a lot longer so I can ask the appropriate questions to constituents and have time to think about things thoroughly. I do support this, but I do think just we need to be married to a process.
Okay, if there's any other comments, we'll put it on the governance agenda for next Tuesday for discussion and put it back on the agenda for that evening. All right, so we have one item of unfinished business, and that is the review of Asheville Police Department open data. And Jamie Matthews is here and going to make the presentation.
And Scott Cornwell from IT is going to help me with this. I know that it's good.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Jamie Matthews, the Assistant to the City Manager. We're going to talk about open data. So the City Council adopted your open data policy in October of 2015, which was drafted in collaboration with Code for Asheville. Since that time, we've provided dozens of data sets, including info on transportation, capital projects, employee salary data, and APD crime data on our city's open data portal. So this is an overview of some of the requests that we got from Code for Asheville at the last April 24th meeting in the Code for Asheville's petition for police accountability for data transparency. Council members then asked staff to review the feasibility of implementing the open data requests and provide a timeline. So these are the lists of things that were requested in the petition, the open data sets, policies and reports, and additional action items. This presentation is going to lay out the next steps for the data sets and the policies and the reports. Some of the additional action items there in the right column will need a bit further guidance from Council on implementation. Over the last 2 weeks since that meeting, IT, the City Manager's Office, APD, and Legal have reviewed the open data requests, and we've developed the next steps. I'd like to thank Patrick Connett, who's here, for bringing the petition forward and the thoughtful recommendations. We look forward to working collaboratively with him as our open data program grows. So open data, we just wanted to provide a kind of a general definition of open data. This definition is provided by the Police Foundation. And the City of Asheville already provides a lot of data in reports that are on our website. But open data follows the guidelines of that it's the raw data sets that are downloadable in digital formats and available for anyone to use. So the goals that we thought through for APD open data is that it's consistent with the City Council's open data policy. It provides for the needed safeguards and privacy concerns. It will increase public trust. So our short-term action items, the following data sets will go up after some technical review or technical procedures are worked out. Actually, the crime reports back to 2005 were put up today, so those are now available. We're hoping the others will happen in the next few months, and this includes the request for APD manual policies and forms that are public records. Those we'll get up to. Additional action items will occur, and as we address those short-term items, we'll also begin the larger process of addressing these data requests. As staff, we started this conversation regarding these data sets, and we'd like more voices at the table as we work through the questions and concerns that we need to consider before posting these data sets. So Scott is going to talk a little bit about that process.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak today. I just want to share, well, first of all, let me also thank Patrick Conan and also Code for Asheville for some real tireless work and many, many hours that have gone in to bring this forward and helping to push our city in this direction. I know a lot of effort's gone into that, so thanks to them.
And Scott, give us your title.
I am the Business and Public Technology Manager for the IT department, and as part of that program, we specifically support the Open Data program. We're the ones responsible for all the technical stuff that goes on with the Open Data portal. And we also do the community data engagement, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So some of you have been to some Code for Asheville events, as well as City of Asheville events in the past, like Open Data Day. We've hosted twice, and I know some of you have participated. In our program helps support that public engagement around data. So I wanted, in addition to thanking them, I just wanted to say that IT Services has been working for some time to improve our overall data governance process, and some of that's been brought forward to the governance committee in the past. But we're looking to do that for all city open data. Public safety data is one key area, but we're looking to do this citywide, and one that explicitly includes community engagement in a meaningful way. So we put together, and admittedly, some of this we've been doing for a long time. So this is a draft process for open data. The stuff on the left there, Jonathan Feldman, our IT director, has referred to as the 3 Ps of policy, pragmatics, and participation. Policy is city council. You tell us that something's a priority, we make it happen. It becomes part of our open data program. Community nominates data, that's participation. So if there's community involvement, something gets requested, we review that and see if we can make it happen, if there's any technical concerns or how we can make that happen. And lastly, sometimes just pragmatic. Staff will identify, we look, for example, at public records requests, and if we get the same request over and over again for the same information, we will try to automate that so that it's on our open data portal, it's updated every day, and staff doesn't have to spend time answering the same request over and over. It's self-service for the residents and community. So that's sort of what guides the principles of how we've done open data to date. So this process we've been thinking through, and admittedly this is just a few days old in terms of putting together this flow chart. And I should also say that in a meeting yesterday with Patrick, already got some good feedback on how to improve this. So this is draft, I want to stress, and we hope and expect to make this better so that we can meet the community's expectations. But we want to look at things like, what are the legalities, issues of privacy, issues of equity, cost, and feasibility, so the staff can kind of come together and come up with those determinations, and then have a process to allow the community to weigh in and give their feedback. And then have a process to work through those issues or concerns, and once that's done, to actually release the data. Some things will move very quickly and require very little overview. Other things will require a little bit more when we're talking about legality and privacy and making sure that we're being true to state statute and other requirements. So that's, this is a draft process that we're working on improving now. In terms of next steps, we're going to start this collaborative process, and again, the idea is we want to make, much of this has been done in City Hall today. There have been some meetings like Open Data Day, but we want to make this whole open data process at the city, take it completely from behind closed doors and bring the community into it. So they should be in from the beginning all the way through how the decisions are made, and have a clear understanding of when something can't happen, why that can't happen. There should be a good reason for that, and we expect that we can provide that when necessary. We're in the process now of setting up the actual mechanics of this. So we anticipate monthly meetings so we can get face-to-face and kind of work out some of the tougher issues, as well as an opportunity for online engagement, because we want people to be able to weigh in. If they can't come to City Hall or they can't come to a meeting at a community center, we want them to be able to weigh in, and we'll provide the ability to do that. We're currently starting the process of actually setting these meetings up and reaching out to groups like Code for Asheville to tell us who needs to be in the room. We want to make sure we're getting the right people. We're not going to just identify those folks. We're going to let the community self-identify in terms of who needs to participate. And we want to stress that we see this opportunity, working through this draft policy and refining it. This is an opportunity for us to test and refine how this process is going to work, to learn from it, and actually make changes, and make sure at the end of the day that we're meeting the community's expectations. And to that end, we also want there to be accountability for us. And so we would like to propose that at the very least that we come, for this request that's before you now in terms of the petition, that we come before the Public Safety Committee on a quarterly basis to report on the progress. And I would say report on the progress until every single item on that request has been addressed. One way or another, we feel like we owe it to you all and to the community to be able to address every single item, and we won't stop until it's done. I don't know we don't know exactly how long that's going to take yet, because a lot of things may come up in these community meetings, but we will stay on it. So that is it, and we'll welcome any questions you might have.
I had really hoped this was going to move a lot faster than this sounds like. Monthly meetings, I was hoping we'd be addressing these things and voting on them in a month.
Well, let's go.
Really drawn out.
So maybe what we need to do, Jamie, is back up the presentation to look at of the items requested, what we're immediately pushing out, and some actually started being made available today. I think the number one, the crime reports, Was that one of the items that's now available as of today?
Right. The request was for the crime reports dating back to 2015. They had been on the website from, I think, 2013 to 15. So now that has been dated back. So that request has been met already. The traffic stop data, demographics, and the manuals, policies, and whatever, and forms will be put up as soon as we can figure out. It's just some technical.
That's a quick process.
Right. Now, and then the other ones.
So the items to.
But the additional 5 is what I'm talking about.
Right. So, in conversation, it's questions. They just need a little bit more thought, and that doesn't mean it's going to take a huge amount of time. There's questions around how the data is currently collected, and even if it's available for an open data set. And I'm trying to explain IT talk, and I'm not great at it. But so some of these aren't available yet in a data set that we can even upload onto open data. And you correct me if I'm
I think that was more of a problem of, it's not like we have it sitting there and it's just a decision about pressing a button. It's the question is on the, for example, emergency call data where there's a request for the location of the call, the different details about the call. I guess there's not a full understanding yet if all that data is collected, and then if it is, what format it's in. So it sounded to me like some of it was that, and then some of them may bring up issues of, if you've got to protect people's confidentiality or whatever the concern might be, that has to also be addressed. So it sounds, I share your frustration, Brian. I would like to hear more of a timeline, but it sounds like we don't know enough yet about what kinds of challenges. We may see very little challenges in some of these categories, but we may see harder challenges in others in the timeline. So, Brian, the idea would be to bring this group together and then come to public safety and say, here's kind of the status of each of these 5 items. But we don't necessarily have to go back to public safety. It could be here, however you want to do it. But I think what you're saying is this needs to be done sooner rather than later on a quick timeline. And I would agree. I think this council would agree. So whatever way, Kathy, that staff can
speed it up
I
and make sure we
mean,
if it's
we
going
have
to
to
go
have
to
monthly meetings. I mean, we meet every week until we get this done. I mean, I understand some things can't be done immediately, and I'm fine with that, but surely that doesn't mean all 5 of these cannot be done quickly. And those that we can do quickly, we should do quickly.
And I feel like, so the technical part is relatively easy for most all of this. There might be 1 or 2 that are challenged technically, but from the IT side, not a problem. And we're already addressing this and working with CJIS to get the county criminal justice information system to get the data ready to be published. I think the questions really are with the police department and their concerns. And they've been at the table so far. I think they would have to address this.
Has had plenty of time at this point to address some of these concerns, and they've not yet done so. It seems to me that there's some dragging of the feet going on here.
So I think what you're hearing from council is we're unsatisfied with an ambiguous answer as to why if it's not a challenge from the technical side. I mean, to me, what that means is we actually do collect all of the information requested. But then sometimes I'm hearing we're not sure if we collect all the information being requested. So that's a little unsatisfying that we don't know the answer to those questions.
I mean, we're supposed to be trying to improve the community trust here. I don't think this does that.
I can concur with Councilmember Haynes. I think at this point in time, I think what you see right here is it's obvious that when council wants something to move very quickly, those things happen at a rate that is unbeknownst to the way that things usually move. And in this sense, whatever we can move forward as quickly as possible needs to happen. It is not acceptable to say we have an arbitrary timeline where we don't know what's gonna, we have problems with the police or whatever it may be to getting this information out there. I think right now what you're looking at is the extreme frustration from council on this part of we just need to get it done. It has taken too long, and I mean, that's it.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we do an update to council maybe in mid-June, our mid-June meeting? Come back on these 5 issues and give us the reason. A lot, you know.
If it hasn't been implemented, like, what are the concerns?
Right.
Because that's what feels like,
Right.
we're not really sure. What are the concerns?
And this doesn't give us detail. I mean, for example, number 3 says emergency call data, but it doesn't break it down. We know it's not, we know that it's certain information under each of these items. So if we could hear more about exactly what's being requested and whether we do collect that data now or not, whether we do collect it in a format that is easy to release or not, and then if yes, we collect it and we have it, then what is the barrier to producing that information to the public? What is the other reason that we can't do that? So, and if there is a barrier, then what is the alternative? But we can produce this other thing that is pretty close, or I'm just throwing that out there. But if we could kind of break it down in that way for each of these items so that we're able to have a more specific conversation about it at the mid-June meeting and then take it from there. And maybe it's just one of these items that'll take a monthly meeting or something like that, or not. So if we could, is that helpful direction? Is council in agreement with that, a direction that we as a full council hear this back again in June?
I don't care about the can-do attitude anymore. Results need to be imminent. They need to happen. I'm sorry. The can can't be kicked down the road anymore. I can't come to any more of these meetings and watch somebody put something up on the screen and say, well, we're working on it and we got a meeting next week and we'll see you in a month. I can't do that anymore. I'm sorry. It has to happen. I don't care how it happens. It just has to happen. Whatever the barriers are to making it happen, I don't even want to know those anymore. I just want someone to come here and tell me, this is what we're going to do and this is when it's going to happen.
I'll actually say I would like to know the barriers.
Well, yeah,
I think it's important to know. And while I realize the desire to move it forward, and I do as well, just speaking for myself, look, I mean, there's sensitive data in here. I think it's worth understanding what the issues are, as the Vice Mayor said. And I think the public wants to know these questions, which are legitimate. So I understand the situation you all are in. I appreciate it that takes some time. I know there's been frustration. You all have been working on that a lot longer than I have as a new member of council. So I'll appreciate hearing the rationale.
Yeah, because to Councilman Kapoor's point, it's not only transparency about what APD is doing, but it's also making sure that our citizens are protected. And so we must look at it all, in a 360 way, because I don't want to see any of our citizens put in harm's way in order to respond to this. So I think we just have to really make sure that we're really thinking about everybody that has an interest in this data or doesn't have an interest in the data.
All right, anybody else? So we're going to follow up at the mid-June meeting and sort of drill down on this slide and really get, hopefully we're going to hear.
Hopefully a lot of, they may be ticked off by then.
Or ticked off.
Or, right, marked off.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys for working on this. And Patrick, I offered you the opportunity if you wanted to respond. Again, we'd be glad, since you started this part of the open data request.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. To start, I wanted to provide an update on our signatures and endorsements. Last time I was here, I forget what the numbers are, but as of right now, we have 1,018 signatures and 30 endorsements, which I want to provide for the public record.
To add ours to the list.
Thank you. To start, I want to say that I agree that we need to protect the privacy of everyone involved here. I think our proposal set a really clear process to do that. I find it, pretty frustrating that we're going back and forth saying that there's concerns around privacy because it's not that hard to handle it. I want to sincerely thank everyone who's helped us to move this process forward. The point of the petition was not simply to demonstrate support, it was to put forward a tangible solution that could bring together many individuals and groups in our city. This coalition we've built is comprised of people who care deeply and want to get to work building a 21st century police department. I do also want to thank the members of staff who reached out to me yesterday. I've reached out to council and the city manager repeatedly for weeks since I was here. And if we got together ahead of time, we could have a better staff report today. We could have a better process today. But luckily, we were able to talk yesterday, and I provided some feedback, and I think that this process is a starting point, and we can get it right. But I just have to highlight once again, it's an example of how our city works better when the community is involved from the start, instead of being shut out while staff figure it out. I do want to point out I'm doing everything I can to move this process forward. Just to kind of pull back the curtain a little, looking at how the process has gone, just reading between the lines. To be honest, I think the way I can most help out today is by calling out the reality of the situation. That's that our police department is not ready to move forward with data transparency. That's just the reality of it. And that's not where I want us to be. I think we can get past that, but that's where we are. That's why the process shifts every meeting. That's why, and it's incredibly frustrating. I just don't want to see us go through an extended process to figure out what we already know, which is that the answer is no for some of these data sets, because it really shouldn't be no. And I understand that efforts, I don't think it's malicious. I think open data efforts, police data efforts can be scary. It seems like a lot can go wrong. And that's why I think it's important for the community and council to show our police department the way we can do this, the way we can do it responsibly. I would definitely welcome a clear statement from APD to prove me wrong. All we need to hear is a commitment to release each of the data sets we've requested, each of the documents as well, and I have no problem working out the details to get us there. I'm happy to have those conversations, but it should be very straightforward. I find it, we've been at this for a while already, and I hear over and over. There's no issues with doing the data sets, with making those available. The city's committed to transparency. But then even this process, even the staff report is done in a non-transparent way. If our city's ready to be transparent, why are all the concerns that have been identified, that council members know about, that staff know about, why aren't they documented? I mean, it doesn't seem right that we can't just write this down. Or we can say the end goal is we're going to put them out there and it's about the details, but I really don't know what's going on here. Why are public records requests for use of force data taking 2 months and then they're still not fulfilled? Why is the community being shut out of the process at a time when they need to be engaged? If we want to be more transparent with our data, let's be more transparent with our processes as well. Our city, in my opinion, is making this more complicated than it needs to be. We're putting more effort into obstructing the process than it would take to release the data. That's why I feel the need to be honest with council. It's on all of you to make this right. It is on all of you to give us a process for open data evaluation that makes sense. We can looking at the proposed process, it was removed from the presentation, but we can't let the term best practices be used to mean that our city can never innovate. Police data transparency is in fact a best practice. It's in the White House report on 21st century policing. That being said, we've seen best practices used in the city differently. We have seen city staff look at other cities in North Carolina and say, look, none of them are releasing this data, so we're not going to do it here. I can tell you without putting a lot of time into it that there are not a lot of cities in our state that already put out all of the data sets we're requesting. That's why when I put this petition together with the help from Code for Asheville, we looked across the country and we found leading cities for some of these data sets. And that's what I want Asheville to be, a leading city in police data transparency. We can improve the proposed process by removing best practices as a criteria, or simply clarifying what it means. It's not a bad word in itself, it's just how it's been used around here.
Patrick, I don't want to cut you off here, but I feel like you're kind of, I think we're saying yes, and we're in agreement with the 5 final data sets that haven't been released. The others have or will be very shortly, and we're very supportive of this council is very supportive of moving ahead with that. And I think what you're hearing tonight is staff is eager to engage with you and others that can come to the table to try to make this a reality. I mean, the council up here, we don't know, we have no idea what the specific concerns would be about releasing any of this other information.
I'd like to hear what you have to say.
And I agree. I just want to make sure that we're not stirring a pot that we're offering to try to work.
And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be dramatic or overly forceful, but I don't know if many members of council have been on this side trying to push a proposal through. But I've done this a few times, and I've seen how these things go wrong. And I've seen when a process comes out, it says best practices, it says staff are going to have the final say. I know what that means. I know where we're going to get. And I just really, I mean, I'm going to get to the point, but really, to boil it down, council needs to say really clearly these data sets have to come out. That's been said, but I just think, I don't know if it needs a vote or something like that, because otherwise we're going to spend months doing this, and APD is going to say we don't want to release some of these.
I think we're saying that, but I think what you're revealing is something that we need to hear. I think what he's revealing is what his experience has been as a person who's very dedicated to 21st century policing and his engagement with staff members. And I think it's very important that he's telling a story that we don't often see and we don't often want to hear. So I would like to, if you don't have time to finish your report, I would love to look through your report, because I think this is what we're here to mitigate those type of issues moving forward, whether we agree with the process or not. I know the end goal is what we all agree on, but I think it's something in between that we can kind of rectify with staff relationships departmentally and with our community members. So I applaud what you have shared here today. I know this has been a long process for you, and I think it takes a lot for you to put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be strong and courageous. I don't know many who have done the great work that you have done.
Thank you. And I would say, I timed this for 10 minutes. I have people willing to cede time if that is more fair.
We're off the grid already, because we're not voting on anything tonight.
I've got 10 minutes on there.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this was just an arrangement we made for you to speak.
And I just don't want these questions to come out of the time. Okay, stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's all right, I would just like to proceed. I'm about halfway through my statement. And I'm getting to the parts of how we can fix this and do it better. So, clearly we need community members in the room from the start, talking with staff. We don't need a staff assessment and community engagement. I'm happy to sit with staff and we can sort this out a lot more quickly if we're all in the room together. What I do think is that it's important that we document concerns. We need staff to document what they see as a challenge, ways we can fix it, and the community to document why we think we should move forward, which is what we've done, Code for Asheville has done. And also, this report then allows council to play an important role. Council needs to make the final decision on the release of a data set, and the report I described provides all the information they need to make that decision. There's going to be times when we're going to disagree. I mean, it's going to happen. And we need a mechanism to embrace and deal with that conflict, not to pretend that it doesn't exist. And also, I've been in meetings with 12 staff members and just me. I've had some bad experiences there. I think it's important, if we're going to do this new process where these are going to be difficult conversations, I would really request that at least one council member attend some of these initial meetings just to ensure it's done right. And I think that's council doing their job to make sure we have a process that works for staff and works for the public as well. The way this process has unfolded has led me to believe that we need some additional action from council in addition to moving forward with these data sets. Our open data policy has helped us greatly to get to this point. At the same time, I think that council and the public believe that our open data policy means if something's a public record and you want it released as a data set, we'll do what it takes to do it responsibly, but it'll get released. I do not believe that all city departments have that same interpretation, and I think we could fix this issue now and in the future by changing the open data policy to make that clear. I also think we should set a timeline. We should say 30 days to hear a response on any data set that comes forward in the future. With all that being said, these are pretty simple revisions. We can make this process work. I do think the open data policy should be enhanced. But in the context of Code for Asheville's proposal, let's move this forward as quickly as possible. The direction at the last meeting was not clear enough, in my opinion. I think the community, I would greatly appreciate just really clear direction from council today. We're a city with a lot of transition happening, and being more clear is not a bad thing at this point. With that in mind, I'm more than happy to participate to see this through. I'm willing to meet next week. I'm willing to make this happen as quickly as we can. So thank you.
Perfect timing. Thanks.
Can I address, with heartfelt, I want to address some of the concerns around this, which I think speak to trust, and also speak to the fact that we don't have the ability to have people assigned to do this 24, the full 40 hours of their work week. So I need to speak up and say that from the time that from the date that it came forward at Public Safety, I want to make sure that council understands that staff has been committed to trying to get to this point. I also think that I need to say that the chief is committed to getting here too. She has said that she wants to work with the community, she wants to make this happen. We have to, as in the role that we set in, do this responsibly so that we don't end up getting sued, we don't end up having issues. And I know that's not popular, I know that there's not fingers clapping, I understand that. And I'm okay with that. What we have committed to do is to work with this group and to build trust and to get to the point we want to. I do not want city staff to be viewed, any of city staff, to be viewed as trying to be obstructionists in this process, because we are not. I will assure you that everybody is trying to, at the table, get to the point where we're working together. We have reached out, we are trying to get our hands around this, and I need to make sure that council understands that we're doing it responsibly and we're trying to do it reasonably to protect all of our citizens. There's no agenda other than to do that. And we want transparency. We've heard from you all, and we are hearing that from you all continually. But I felt remiss in not being able to clearly say that we do have the police department on board. A lot of folks have other jobs. I think hearing from y'all very clearly that this is a priority does make it advance to a higher agenda, but that is at the expense of other things getting done. So I just feel like it's responsible from a city staff perspective to speak up and make those comments with respect.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else want to comment on this before we move on? We're scheduled to hear more detailed information about the 5 data sets that are still outstanding at our mid-June meeting. And again, Patrick, thank you for your work on this. I do appreciate it, and others that have worked with you on it. And I do think that it does take community members to push sometimes to push a new issue and to keep pushing. So I don't, people might not always like all the pushing, but I do think that it is effective in getting us to continue to focus on the issue meeting after meeting, which is what has been required to move this one along.
Something else? He said something very important. He said that a lot of times he was the only community member in the room with a group of 12 staff members, and I believe that's an opportunity for someone that is on the Public Safety Committee to be in that room to show support. We need somebody to be that equalizer.
And I'm happy to be in that room.
I'm not trying to say anything that speaks that to our staff not being responsible. That's not the message. But the message is this: we're in a crisis here in our city concerning public safety. And if there were a crisis in any area of our city that really impeded our economic success, we would put all of our eggs in a basket. So with this matter, because we have gained national attention, because people feel unsafe, because of public trust in police officers is really eroding daily, even with this process, we need to understand in order for us to build trust, we need to move with all deliberate speed.
If there's a way to let a member of public safety know that the meeting is occurring so that they have the opportunity to attend, I think that would be...
As the chair of the public safety, I'm happy to be there and with anyone else willing to do it as well.
And Kathy, too, just in terms of, I appreciate the comments you had, and one of the things that, Patrick, that you had said that I think is important, too, is kind of documenting, understanding from our end. Again, I'm not in the numbers, I'm not in the weeds here as you all have, but kind of understanding, okay, what is Code for Asheville asking for, what are some of the concerns, documented concerns that we have, just so we know. Again, I mean, that would be very, very helpful on our end, because I kind of feel like I'm in a fog up here with respect to those details.
Well, and I think what we're talking about at our next meeting is of the data sets that have been requested, there are several that are already going to be pushed out, but the 5 remaining are the ones we're talking about now. Right. So we're going to hear about the status of those. Okay, we have one item of new business, a resolution regarding the Citizen Police Advisory Committee, and Sarah Terwilliger is here to present this item to council.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Sarah Terwilliger. I'm the Deputy Clerk and also the Boards and Commissions Manager. And I'm here before you tonight to talk to you briefly about the Citizens Police Advisory Committee, provide you with some background and some reasonings that you may consider dissolving this committee. To start at the beginning, the Citizens Police Advisory Board, often referred to as CPAC, was first established in 1991 by Resolution 91-67. One of the primary functions of this committee was to serve, and is to serve, as a liaison between the police department and the community regarding concerns and policing concerns. Through this process and several years of monthly meetings, it has brought to light a significant community concerns regarding structural racism. As a result, Council, about this time last year, created the Blue Ribbon Committee to make recommendations and research best practices for a new committee, the Human Relations Commissions. As I'm sure you recall, just last month on April 10th, the Human Relations Commissions of Asheville, or the HRCA, ordinance was adopted establishing this new committee. And you are currently in the process of reviewing those applications to potentially make appointments at next week's meeting on May 22nd. As you know, the HRC is equipped to take a more comprehensive approach to improve human relations and advance equity in the public safety. This includes a forum in which citizens can raise and bring concerns regarding human relations before the committee. In addition, and on the community relations end, the police department is continuing to partner with neighborhood groups, host and contribute to community events, and has designated community liaisons to various community groups, all to provide a more direct community engagement opportunities with the police department. A complete list of these opportunities, events, and meetings will be has been attached to your proposed resolution, and of course was attached in your packet for review. All of these meetings, events, and opportunities will also be posted on the city's master calendar, which is on the city's main page, and we pushed out or advertised through the various social media outlets, including the neighborhood networks in coordination and collaboration with the Neighborhood and Community Engagement Manager. So given these two major initiatives, the new HRC board to advance human relations and the police department's community engagement program to provide for more direct community engagement opportunities, council, and also I should add the proposed bill that the mayor mentioned regarding the Citizens Review Committee, that council may consider dissolving the Citizens Police Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right. So this is a proposal that requires a motion, rather. I'm waiting on the motion. No, I don't think, no. Yeah, no, she's not, yeah. So we need a motion and a second before we can take any comment on this.
I'll make a motion to move that the City Council resolve the Citizens Police Advisory Committee.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second.
So I have to say something.
Yes.
I would caution us to delay dissolving CPAC right now. I believe that, in theory, we believe that the HRAC is going to take up these community concerns. And I believe that in its new formation, I think that is a bad idea. I believe that CPAC should stay in place to kind of be an intermediary committee to hear public safety concerns, because right now we see that public safety in our community is being a top issue. If we overload HRC with a lot of public safety issues and put the burden on them to resolve and mediate those issues, then the other scope of their work will be missing. I believe, and especially since we have this bill to put in place maybe a citizen review board, I think that would possibly take the place of CPAC, but we have to wait to see the result of that. I think it's very smart to keep CPAC in place and to revisit the role and the function of CPAC. From 1991, I'm reading the function of CPAC, and I've never seen them operate at this potential. And no offense to the members on that board, on that committee, but I believe that we need to revisit, relaunch, look at the 5 positions that are open, staff those positions with high-level volunteers, and have CPAC be maybe like a subcommittee to the Human Relations Committee. I think that would be a tremendous support. I don't think it's operated at its function because, honestly, I don't believe it's really had the support. So right now, I would caution us to delay.
Okay, anyone else on council want to speak to it before? You can after we hear public comment as well.
Well, even though I just seconded that, I think I'm agreeing with Shanika here.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, my thought on this, I think, is one of timing here. Just my own perspective is there's a lot of moving parts over here, and I kind of understand the overall goal. And believe me, I'm one who was fine with kind of streamlining things. You know, I view this issue as kind of more of a transition issue in terms of saying between the time we get the HRCA up and the time we have CPAC over here is a little bit of a concern of mine. And look, I know CPAC right now is operating with a lot of folks down. I know they haven't had a lot of agenda. I'll be interested to hear what folks have to say in the public comment as well. But you know, my own take is I don't have any issue with dissolving it relatively soon. I'm just a little bit concerned about the transition between where we are now and the commission going forward.
How many members are on CPAC right now? Do we have?
Sorry,
Five are remaining out of the how many? Do we know how many? 9. So this would, instead of we have to start advertising and ramping it up again. So it would be a change of direction. Anybody else want to? I'm going to open it up.
I think as VJ said, I feel it's a transitional issue. I think you know, when you have the Human Relations Commission come on board and start to get its feet on the ground and start running and moving forward, I think we'll be able to see that group be able to take on a lot more than what we even imagined. I think some aspects of CPAC have worked well, and some aspects of CPAC have been horribly misconstrued. So I think we have opportunity to possibly do some sort of transitioning. I'm not necessarily sure. I did make the motion. I'd be interested in hearing what the what folks in the audience have to say, as well as other council members. I don't think it's set in stone. We have it here on this agenda. We've talked about it several times before over the months, thus the freezing of positions going on in CPAC. So it's not something that it's not a decision to even put it to this point that we've made willy-nilly. We've taken some time to do that and watched CPAC and watched how it operated. So, there's still room for making another decision, but I'd love to hear from other council members at some point in time before we make a vote, or even I'll withdraw the motion, either or, but I'd like to hear from the public as well.
I think before now, maybe like in early 2017, I would have been all for it. But right now, I just think it's a bad idea. I think it takes some time and some thought, and I've put thought into it, and actually believe that once we figure out the members on HRCA, so hard to say, HRCA, I believe that we should have 2 individuals from that committee serve as non-voting liaisons on CPAC, so that we have that continuity of care and thoughtfulness.
Okay, anybody? Okay. All right, I'm gonna open it up. Again, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on the, well, are we going to withdraw the motion? Because then we don't need to.
I haven't considered that yet. I mean, it's in the back of my mind, but I do want to hear what the public has to say.
We'll wait in here. All right.
Can't withdraw the motion.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Carol Rogoff-Hallstrom, and as some of you know, I completed 2 terms as a member of CPAC. Share the frustrations, appreciate the potential. I do think it is an unusual time to consider dissolving CPAC when we are not yet at a point where we have stood up a Human Relations Commission, and I think there's some uncertainty with regard to the scope that commission will have. I also would like some clarification. I took the occasion to talk with Ms. Dewana Little, the chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee, with regard to the scope of the Human Relations Commission. And it was my understanding from that conversation that the Blue Ribbon Committee did not support the dissolution of CPAC, that the Blue Ribbon Committee, much as Councilwoman Smith is suggesting, felt that all other issues would be jeopardized with regard to appropriate attention with the enforcement, law enforcement issues, APD issues in particular, coming over. So I think some clarification with regard to what the actual recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Committee were would be appropriate. But at least, again, I cycle off. I don't have, as they say, a dog in this fight. But I do think removing a forum for the public at this point in time to express legitimate concerns about the nature of policing in communities in our city would be a grave error. So I would seriously encourage your reconsideration. Thank you.
My name is Michael Beach. I live in Oakley. I've been observing the CPAC for the past 2.5 years for the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville as part of our commitment to support Black Lives Matter. I provide written report each month. So I've been at this meeting when there was one other person in the audience, and I've been there when there were near 100, and I've been there when there were far more, like the March meeting at the Grant Center. In my opinion, this committee was misidentified to the public as the start. It is not a committee to advise the APD. It is a committee to pass to council recommendations for council action. Few actual resolutions moved to the council in the 2.5 years that I've attended. This difference was not regularly clarified and thus led to confusion as to the potential outcome and effectiveness of any discussion at the meeting. The public expected some movement and none was generally forthcoming from the discussions. So few things moved to the resolution stage. The perceived lack of movement and lack of effectiveness on issues led to increased anger and frustration in the community. function of CPAC was poorly known and understood by the public, who think it's a committee where their conversation, requests, and complaints are formally channeled to the APD, and who think that the committee has some power or authority to make actual changes and to actually advise the APD. This is not the case. There have always been APD command officers and duty officers sitting in the meeting, and they have taken notes and responded to individual reports, comments, and requests, and have apparently not responded to some. My experience with an issue of random gunshots near my neighborhood was swiftly acted upon, and yet other requests regarding safe communities have gone without resolution. They have, however, presented an opportunity for the community to speak very openly, directly, and honestly about issues related to policing. Sometimes this is quiet and thoughtful, and at other times it's loud, full of pain, fury, and anger. I know it's been difficult for each officer present to hear, but it is extremely important that the community have a forum to speak directly to the APD and express their anger and frustration. CPAC did provide a forum for the community to express its response to policing in the community, to support some efforts and express dismay and anger and indignation at others. Issues of policing are complex, we all are aware of that. For instance, when does adding extra patrols to a neighborhood where there are shootings become over-policing, and who decides what that is and when? My concern is disbanding CPAC before the Human Relations Committee is in place is a tremendous error. The HRC is not staffed, it has not met, it has not organized, it has not established practices and guidelines. It may not have any clear idea of the scope of any actual power that they may or likely do not have.
Thank you.
Sabrina Raven. Next week, the Multimodal Commission will be reviewing our new transit master plan and deciding whether to recommend that up to council. There are only 2 people on the Multimodal Commission who are deep in the details of our transit system. The other members of that commission are there to represent the concerns of greenways, bicycles, and pedestrians. As a body, they would not be qualified to make decisions about transit if they weren't working with recommendations that come from the Transit Committee, which is narrowly focused on our bus system and has a deep and thorough knowledge of our transit needs. The HRCA is going to have a very broad scope. It needs a broad scope. That same broadness is going to prevent it from developing a deep and thorough knowledge of policing issues. A few members, if we're lucky, might have that knowledge, but as a body, as a whole, they will not be able to develop that expertise unless they choose to neglect other areas of their scope. And just because the policing is the issue that's in the media right now, we shouldn't let that fool us into thinking it's the only issue that matters. When the Multimodal Commission was created, council didn't eliminate the Transit Committee. They folded it under the Multimodal Commission. That's what you should be doing with HRCA and CPAC. The vacancies on CPAC need to be filled as soon as possible, and it should be folded under the HRCA. To eliminate it at this point would be an institutional statement that you don't think police-community relations matter.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Ashley Cooper. I just want to encourage that we look at what's happened already in the past. So the Blue Ribbon Committee was started. When it got started, it took a while. I sat in all of those public meetings. I was a public attender. It took a while for the formation of the committee to start. You lost the chair of it because the work was overwhelming. The amount that was asked of that committee was so large, and to figure out how to manage a group that had never worked together, Lucia had to drop off from her role. So we're going to repeat that with the HRCA. It has never existed before, how it will function, how this group will form team dynamics to actually accomplish an extremely complex charge that they have. So I highly discourage from dissolving CPAC. Keep it in place until things are created with the HRCA and we see if it even fits under there. I also think that a lot of the justification for dissolving it is about all that APD is doing that's building trust with the community. And I think we heard really well today from the CALO students. They came up here and they spoke, and numbers of them mentioned how helpful and supportive and the concrete things that Erica has done to build trust with them. It wasn't Erica coming up here saying, I'm trustworthy, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and that's what proves that I'm trustworthy. And that's what I feel like we're hearing, is that APD is doing this, and this, so therefore they're doing community engagement that's effective, and it's not effective unless the people who are impacted, unless those students say, we feel safe with these police department because they're doing this, and this, then we know it's effective. So let's have like some real community partnership. Let's build CPAC in a way that it can actually function, and let's not set the HRC up for a total disaster. If we have another major incident that happens with the police and HRCA is just trying to get started, it's going to swallow all functioning capacity of that new committee. Thank you.
Well, sorry. Okay. You'll be next, yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carmen Ramos-Kennedy, president of the Asheville Buncombe Branch NAACP. And I just want to say something short and sweet. Having served on a city committee, it took us a full year, a new committee, it took us a full year to get our legs under us. So bear that in mind. We need the transition of CPAC in place. Please do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, my name is Rondell Lance, President of Fraternal Police, and I rise tonight in support of keeping CPAC. I've been to numerous meetings. I've seen the staff that they have there that represents our community. Yes, at times it can get hectic. Yes, at times it can be kind of confusion, but so can, I think, a lot of city council meetings. At times, so can city council meetings. But the job that they do, we often disagree, but at least as a Fraternal Order Police President, I have an avenue to go to view our side, and I listen to the other side. I've been amazed at the job that they've done in the past, and I've made some friends there by going to those meetings and met people who we may be on opposite ends of thought, but we talk. There's a lot of people here, now several of them in our audience tonight, that without CPAC I would have never met, would have never been able to have a conversation with. So CPAC has performed a great service, I think, for our community, and I agree that it should stay in place until we can see how the HRCA is set up, how it is functioning. I think it would be damage to our city and to the voices that are here tonight, even though we may disagree, but it would be damaging to take that away at this time until HRCA is set up and fully functional. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Yes.
Hi, my name's Patrick Conan. I was on the city's Blue Ribbon Committee that helped propose the recommendations for the HRCA. And I do want to confirm, just for clarity, that we did discuss CPAC and we made a clear decision not to make a recommendation one way or another. Our discussions really did feel that centered around the idea that if CPAC stayed in place while the HRC got started, that would avoid overwhelming the HRCA by taking on too many roles at once. We felt that although CPAC has had its challenges, it does serve a role that's important in our community. If we take that away before the HRCA is functioning properly, it really worries me about what happens if something else goes wrong in our city. I mean, where are people going to voice their frustration? CPAC might not have solved the problem, but it did. It provided people with a forum where they could make their feelings known, and that was very important. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, in hearing why CPAC can go away, it lists a lot of things that APD is doing, meeting with neighborhood groups, and I think that is great. But I do want to point out that there is a difference between getting to know the officers who serve in your neighborhood and talking about policies, talking about system level questions or issues with our police department. CPAC really didn't put a lot of recommendations forward to council. I hope the HRCA will do that. But I just think it's worth pointing out that engaging with neighborhood associations is way different than talking about policy. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Luke Fernbach. Just wanted to add a brief thing to what community members have already said. I think it sets a really makes a dangerous statement when we're saying to the community at the very first CPAC meeting, after the big meeting at the Grant Center, after the Rush incident, that they were dissolving the committee. So, you know, there was the meeting at the Grant Center in March, then April, the meeting didn't take place, and then the next time the committee convenes, we're telling the community that we're not gonna have this anymore. So I just think that that is kind of like sending the wrong message in this moment of trying to build community trust. Also, I like what has been said about some overlap potentially in this transition phase between CPAC and the Human Relations Committee. And I hope that we're being really mindful about which CPAC members we think really embody the values of the HRC and making sure that those individuals are the ones that are doing that interfacing. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Dorothea Williams, D. Williams, and I guess I'm somebody who works in the community. The first thing that we need to do, preferably, is to tell the truth. We can't really get anywhere until we tell the truth. We have a very dangerous situation here in Asheville for black and brown bodies. I don't know if you know that. I'm from the community. I'm a native, and the community has pretty much lost trust and anything that has to do with the system, from the police department to city council, because the quality of life that they experience on a daily basis is not analogous to what other folks in the community deem as normal. Let me also say that I don't see how you can go to Raleigh and expect the delegation or the General Assembly to pass something that you don't believe in here in Asheville, like low-cost, no-cost initiatives, like written consent. We've had these things for months with Ian Mance, the curator of the traffic stop data. Let me also say that if you look at your website and you look at the police department's website, the chief's page, you'll see that the traffic stop data is not appropriately reported. There's a mechanism that a professor, woman whose name eludes me now, but works at North Carolina Central, that a lot of cities and police departments have contracted. And what she does is she utilizes not what we call census tracts, but designated crime areas. And I was managing some of the Census 2010, and I've never seen Hillcrest enumerated as a minor civil division, or let alone a census tract. But then crime statistics or stop statistics are correlated back to that to diminish the impact of racial profiling. You also have the use of racial profiling data, what they call hotspots. We also asked for information that was inputted into that to impute those as being rationale for over-policing. You got a fairly dangerous situation here in Asheville that's going on right now. And I understand that the city should be concerned. I am concerned. This is a dangerous place to live. We've got data, and we are collecting data right now that shows us that in 2 of the 4 areas that are the social determinants of health. Number 1, traffic stops where we're racially profiled here in Asheville by the Asheville Police Department more than any comparably sized city in North Carolina. As of first quarter 2018, worst traffic statistics that have ever been done since inception. You need to know that. The second thing is our Asheville City School System, of which you nominate folks for the school board. Black youth performing at the worst level of any youth in North Carolina. So that's 50%, and we've got the other 2 sectors of housing and economic to come in. So you need to know that we live in a very dangerous time. Don't go down to Raleigh. We need to start right here.
Okay, if you, just so you know, if you cede your time, then you're not speaking on this issue. Okay.
I just appreciate that. We've been working really hard, and I know, you know, sometimes you think that folks who are locals, and especially folks of color, who may not be regarded as highly as others, who are not regarded as important, don't see what's going on, but we do. We do. And what I caution you to do is just to be truthful. Shiny objects like sending a package of items to the legislature when you yourselves don't believe. We're looking for believers. We're looking for people who are going to help people in our city live, survive, and have equal access to opportunity. This is about living and lives here and the quality of life. I saw those young faces. I was downstairs in Overflow. I drove back from Greenville, Spartanburg this afternoon and got here late, and I saw those young people. And I said, woe be to God if they come back here after college. And I just hope that they don't see the reticence that I've seen. I'm not saying that city staff is hard to deal with, but certainly any organization rots from the top down. So you're going to have to lead by example. Those of you all, and I understand you're having to be balanced and to wait things out and to talk about process, but just throwing one shiny thing after another at the community, the black community, is really at risk. A lot of y'all don't understand that you enjoy white privilege, so you don't have to worry about this. I'm not looking for anything out of my life. I work for myself, so I'm not afraid of repercussions from whatever I say or do. So I would say to you that it's time to speak truth to power. And it's also time for y'all to start speaking truthfully as well. We can't live here like this. Black folks cannot be at risk just because of the way we look. And I don't know if you know this, but those of you who don't know, your police force uses tactics that come from slave patrols. That is why we're looking at 21st century policing. So we need to get real about what's going on in this city. I've lived here all of my life, and let me say this. This police department has been virtually run the same way from when I was a youngster growing up until the way it is now. I understand that there's inherent danger and that these people are fraternalized or they stick together. There's nothing wrong with that. But there should be guardians and not warriors. That is why Quentin Miller won the sheriff's race, because he proposed 21st century policing, and he's on your police force right now. And a lot of them don't want that. And I know that. I also want to just say this. If it had not been for Stoney Gons, who's been terminated, and by the way, I did hear from him. He called me, told me he was terminated. And let me just say that the way he was described in the newspaper, I know no such man. I know no such man. I know when the group went down and protested and occupied the police department, he was the one who volunteered to come and say and to broker the situation, to facilitate. That's neither here nor there. But you need to understand that. This man is an educated man, a passionate man, and I really believe he was fired for retaliation. You have what we call whistleblower protection, but if he's gotten fired, you don't have anything at all. You have something on paper. The other thing that I would say to you is that y'all have a way of just, I guess, because you have to support the staff, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you work for us, and you work for the general public, and they do too. A lot of us have stopped believing, and I guess we just go through the motions. I saw these young people up here today, and it kind of made me jealous. I wish I was like that. I wish I really had the innocence, and I really believed that people would do the right thing, but I know that people act out for money and power. And let me say this, there's nothing worth sacrificing your integrity for. I haven't found it yet, and I've been made a lot of offers, okay? And I'm sure you have. Let me just say that the black community in Asheville probably is faring worse than any black community in North Carolina. And we'll have the data to substantiate that very shortly. But 50%, two of those determinants, we're way underwater. So I would admonish you because of the fact that the world hasn't yet caught up. You've gotten some media attention, but not any of that for the purposes that data show that we fare worse than African Americans anywhere else. And so with us being in those positions, we are at risk of being substantially hurt. So there's no need to go to Raleigh and throw more shiny things at us. We know they don't have a chance in hell of passing. You can do some things right up here in Asheville. Low cost ways that the EMS put forward months ago. Written consent months ago, until we get 21st Century Policing. Just because there's an LLC named 21st Century Policing, unless it comes from the Justice Department itself, I always write my contracts to satisfy me. That is no more than a contract that you're writing. So I would admonish you to get help from the Justice Department. The FBI has gotten involved with the APD because Mr. Rush's civil rights were violated, I'm pretty sure. So I would admonish you to take advantage, because there's also incentive funds for training. And this is what I talked about with Stony Gantz. It wasn't well received, but at any rate, I would admonish each and every one of you to stop listening. You know, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same things over and over again. Some of us may be not quite as palpable as others, but some of us have ideas and some real solutions that work. And one of the things that I notice is that we have a failure to benchmark anything that we do. And that's what's wrong with CPAC. Anytime you commission a committee, you give it goals, objectives, and tangible benchmarks. They were never properly commissioned, and they were never properly held accountable nor benchmarked. So I sincerely hope that when you write into this Human Relations Council, that you benchmark them. You've given them no power, so they don't have a whole lot other than discussion purposes to go by. With that, I'll just end my diatribe, and I'll see you somewhere. Thank you.
Okay, anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak and who hasn't ceded their time wishing to speak on this item?
Well, my name is Kim Rohde, and I am a piano teacher, and I serve on the Multimodal and the Transportation Commission. And I just wanted to remind that some of the people that were sitting here were at the Boards and Commission meeting that I attended on May 22nd of 2017, where we were just starting to have the discussion in committee level, or y'all were starting to have a discussion at committee level about what was going to happen with the HRC. And from those notes in public comment, I suggested what my colleague Sabrina Raven from the Transit Committee suggested. I would not know everything that there is to know about greenways, but as a multimodal member, I can turn to my colleagues that are on greenways, since there are 4 of our 8 voting members are on greenways, and I will get an earful about how to make wise decisions and how to be informed. So I know where to go if I want to preserve an old tree in the city. I know where I need to go if I'm going to discuss transit. I know where I need to go if I'm going to discuss affordable housing. But where are we going to go to say something good or bad, or to bring ideas forward? I'm just going to suggest that it's been literally a year, and we're having the same conversation, so thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second, and we've heard a lot of comments about it. I would just offer, and I know, Keith, I think you're preparing to withdraw your motion, but I think the vision, as I understand it, would be that eventually a citizen review committee would be a subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission, but that would be determined by the Human Relations Commission, so I think that point is well made. And that is a model that Greensboro uses, for example. They have a Human Relations Commission, and they have a citizen review committee that has a little more teeth than ours does, unfortunately, right now. So some of this legislation is aimed at getting us a little closer to that. Actually, it would surpass that model if it were to all come to fruition. So you want to go ahead. I'll put words in your mouth.
Motion withdrawn.
All right, motion withdrawn. So we do have a challenge, because we've got, of the 9 members of CPAC, by the end of June, we will only have 3 remaining. And of the 3, 1 is not able to attend on a regular basis. So that gives us two very dedicated CPAC members. So we'll need to go back to boards and commissions and come up with a plan, I guess, but it will involve advertising for the vacant positions on CPAC. So hopefully your enthusiasm tonight will translate to maybe some applications for those positions. And then, and it may end up being more of a transitional moment for that committee if the HRCA does in fact decide to fold that CPAC under it, so.
And I would just add that, you know, it's always good to hear from community members, especially when it comes to something like this, because this is something that we have been wrestling with for quite a bit of time, and it wasn't even necessarily an 100% go, I think. I think it was more one of those, let's put it out there and see. But we have an opportunity when we go back to boards and commissions that we've heard that, you know, maybe we, in this transitional period, someone mentioned that, you know, I think it was Carmen mentioned that, you know, when she served on the board, it took over a year to kind of get their legs up under them and kind of work the process. I think we have an opportunity coming back to boards and commissions to maybe fine-tune scope, maybe, possibly, if we choose to do that. I'm not necessarily sure, but those are conversations that I would love to entertain and figure out how, during this transitional period, that we can make this entity the best entity that it can be in order to service the community. And with the input from community members, and, you know, please come to our meetings and offer and send us emails. You don't have to just be at the meeting. Send us emails or phone calls or whatever, and offer up your suggestions, and council members, we can have those conversations on how to make this the best possible entity that we can during this transitional period, and what we can do to make it as successful as possible as we move forward with HRC and the proposed legislation that will hopefully go to the General Assembly. So those are some things that we can be thinking about. And of course, we still have to advertise and get some more members, but we just need a quorum. So we've got a lot to work on, but we can do it, and I think we'll be dedicated to it. And we hope that the members of the community will continue to contact us and reach out to us and pull us aside and say, hey, you know, I think this might be a good idea for this board to do X, Y, and Z in this transitional period. So look forward to moving that one down the road and figuring it out.
Any other comments from council? Okay, so we don't need a vote because we don't have a motion. Boards and Commission meets next Tuesday. Okay. Okay, that concludes our printed agenda. I have a number of people that signed up to speak, so I'm just going to go through this in order, and if we already covered your topic or whatever the case may be, feel free to say that. So this is an opportunity to speak on items that we did not address during the City Council meeting. Again, please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. The first person I have signed up to speak is Maddie Swims. Okay, so you're all right. And then maybe Holden Mesk has the same situation. Okay. And Lauren Shafetti.
I would like to be as never already.
Okay. And Jesse Michael. Oh, we got one. Okay. Maybe we should.
Hello. My name is Jesse Michael. I'm a colleague of Patrick Conan as well as a close personal friend.
Oh, wait, are you going to talk about something we already did on our agenda tonight?
Am I not allowed to do that?
But we didn't have public comment during that. So
yeah, we didn't have a
go
public
ahead.
comment. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm also a member of Code for Asheville. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your ongoing support of this petition. I wanted to lend my voice to the discussion as a person who's been participating in these efforts from a supporting role. This is my first public comment ever, and for a long time I've been watching people like Patrick Conan, Dee Williams, Ian Mance, and Amy Cantrell come to this podium and state their cases for what I consider to be very common sense reform. Whether these reforms came in the form of policies like written consent or an increased commitment to data transparency, one thing's remained consistent from my observations. We rely very heavily on what's considered best practices to inform our decision making as a city. And there's nothing wrong with this term. In business, I often cite best practices to my clients as justification to do things in an industry standard way. It offers a loose form of insurance for my decision making process. Best practices, however, it's a relative term, and it can be used to justify morally wrong decisions or to support a system or actions that have long produced insufficient results. For a long time, I've watched best practices get cited as justification to not try new things, to follow and not to lead, and to preserve and not to innovate. Asheville is at a long overdue decision point where we're determining what our future holds for racial equity and inclusion. The only silver lining of the assault on Johnny Rush is that it exposed the profound racial disparities that our town experiences. The community is working tirelessly to maximize the silver lining with the help of groups like Code for Asheville and others who supported this petition. We're working to extract something positive out of one of the most highly publicized police incidents to come out of Asheville. There are no best practices for how to fix our city's racial equity problems because our problems are unique. The only thing we can do is commit to innovation, creativity, and the urge to try new things to build equity. We need to listen to our community and involve them in the process to make our police department more transparent and accountable. I see these commitments from community volunteers and leaders, and I urge you to reciprocate. Now is the time for Asheville to stop following the lead of other cities and become a leader of other cities, because what we desperately need is some experimentation. In the wake of Mr. Rush's assault, I wrote to City Council that you have an opportunity to turn around some very...
Thanks.
Thank you.
If you've got any printed comments, you can pass them to... Whoa. Thanks. Anybody? Oh, wait. I've got the signs. Luke Fernbach.
Good evening. My name is Luke Fernbach, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm also here to speak in support of Code for Asheville's petition for data transparency. I'm also concerned and agree with a lot of what Patrick said in his comments after the city's presentation. But honestly, I'm optimistic. I really appreciated a lot of the comments that were made by some of you all. And I feel like you all recognize how important this is. And the community recognizes how important it is also. Like Patrick said, over 1,000 people have signed the Code for Asheville petition. So just for context, that is almost as many votes as separated the third leading vote getter in the last city council election, Gwen, who is up here, from the fourth, Kim Rooney, who's back there somewhere. So as you all are trying to decide with what level of urgency to proceed and how much pressure to put on the city staff and APD, keep in mind those 1,000 people who are looking at you to see what you do and who will hold you accountable in the next election.
Stephen Pinsky.
Can you say the last name again?
Pinsky? I'm sorry, Pinsky.
Hi. I'm here to give you a little information about the Asheville Museum of Science. I want to thank the mayor and city council for giving me this chance to speak. Let me introduce myself. I'm Stephen Pinsky. I am professor of physics emeritus from Ohio State University. I'm on the board of the Asheville Museum of Science and vice president. Along the way, I've been the director of the Ohio Center for Technology and Science when I was at Ohio State. And more recently, I was president of the Aspen Science Center. Let me give you a little history of how I got into this so you can understand how important this is. My involvement in these issues goes back 30 years when I was a professor at Ohio State. And I was working with a colleague of mine, Ken Wilson. Ken has a Nobel Prize in physics. and somebody I idolized. And he had a deep commitment to science education, and he said simply, Steve, we can't keep doing the same thing we've been doing and expect different results. We need to completely revamp how we teach science in this country. Ken and a number of his colleagues across the country had been working on that at that time, and that's continued during the next 30 years. And what we've come to know now as inquiry-based, hands-on education has totally changed the way we approach STEM education in this country and around the world. And as a part of those changes that have happened in STEM education, science centers and science museums have sprung up all across the country. There are now 500 of these. Fortunately, you now have one in Asheville that's been around now for about 2 years. These are an integral part of how we go about teaching science with this hands-on, inquiry-based education. We're teaching students how to think, how to innovate, how to be creative. These are the basis of how kids learn science. And we have a lot of experience on how these kind of organizations run, what their business practices are, what works, what doesn't work. What we've learned from talking to each other, we have professional meetings that I go to on a regular basis, is that it requires we can only count on about 60% of our needs to come from our earned income. We need about a third from other sources. And in many of these examples across the country, these additional resources come in the sense that cities and local governments provide the buildings and the home for these museums. This is a very common.
Do you have 3 people here to cede their time to you? 1, 2? Anybody else? All right, we have somebody else who wanted to.
We need to have, in the other places where they don't get this kind of free building for their home, cities and local governments provide resources to cover approximately that amount of what's needed to run these museums. And this is the benchmark that we need to set here in Asheville if we're going to have a successful business. This is a business like any other business. We're selling science, we have customers, we run a building, we have staff, we have payrolls. And if we're going to have a business, a new business succeed, and you all know what the risks are for new businesses, we have to meet these, and I'll use the phrase, best practices that we've found around the country if we're going to do this. And I think you should all keep in mind another phrase that I think has been said here and that I mentioned earlier. We can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. We need to improve the quality and quantity of science and STEM-related education in Asheville. And we have a dedicated staff and leadership at this museum that can make a huge difference. And I hope you'll take that into account when you look at budget and funding opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be looking at our outside agency funding at our next meeting, just by the way. Tiffany Beloit? Double O. I'm sorry.
Good evening, Honorable Manheimer and Vice Mayor Gwen Whistler and esteemed City Council members. My name is Tiffany Debelo, and I'm just here to give you an update of the Asheville City Schools Foundation's In Real Life After School Network and just some of the great things that we've been doing. I do have some handouts that I'll leave with you guys. One of the things that, the reason that I am here tonight is to just first and foremost say thank you to the city just for your continued investment in after-school programming with In Real Life IRL and just your investment in our youth. The city's investment of $45,000 has been given to the In Real Life After School program for 2017 and 18 school year. And this continued level of investment for the 2018-19 school year would prove extremely beneficial, not just for the foundation or for IRL, but for the 279 youth that we serve per year. Because of your generous contributions, we have been successful in increasing our enrollment, increasing our lens of equity, and increasing our investment in just bringing, excuse me, you can tell how I feel, in bringing community partners together to do what we all love to do, and that's to serve youth. I am extremely excited to report that the Kayla students that are now seniors at Asheville High School in Silsa, 75% of those students attended IRL from 6th to 8th grade. One student in particular is now being reinvested in, and he's running an IRL program. So not only did he receive training, but he also received a stipend. So for 5 weeks, he attended and ran, developed, and operated his own program with youth of color. And what this did for him and our young individuals was it gave them a model to go by. He learned how to administer social-emotional learning skills. He was able to observe and document that information, and he's still a senior. And it just warms my heart to be able to come here and give you an update of just the wonderful things that your investment in our youth and in our school district, along with in the foundation, is doing in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Asheville City Schools Foundation will continue to receive the funding from same amount as last year. It's in this year's proposed budget. So thank you for coming tonight and giving us an update. That's helpful to let everyone know the results of that investment. Thank you. Stephen Beltram.
Hi, thanks for the time here. My name is Stephen Beltram, and my wife Beck and I own Balsam Gardens, which is a certified organic farm here in town. We own a 34-acre property on which we maintain a large portion of that property as wildlife and pollinator habitat, as well as a riparian buffer to protect the watershed. We also do extensive cover cropping to sequester carbon. In addition to growing organic produce, our farm serves important ecosystem functions. It's been a 5-year process for us to purchase and convert this 34-acre property to organic. And we've taken on a lot of risk to do it personally. But one of the challenges that we face growing this local food is a heavy deer population on our farm. And we're obligated by federal law to make every effort to exclude wildlife from our production area for food safety reasons. So left unmanaged, this is a situation that could put us out of business. So we reached out to a group called Backyard Bow Pro, which is a local charity that helps landowners manage deer and donates the meat to organizations that feed the less advantaged in our community. We thought this was a way to turn a problem into a community solution. But in order to harvest the meat and donate it to charity, we need to get a depredation permit from the North Carolina Wildlife Commission. And they informed me that they couldn't give us one because there's a city ordinance banning the shooting of arrows in the city limits. And I understand why in dense residential areas, we don't really want that, but we've got a 34-acre property that borders the city lines. In fact, I can see 200 feet away from our proposed site a deer stand on the neighbor's property, because that's the city-county line where they shoot with guns at deer. So there is an exemption to the ordinance for the protection of property, and I think that applies in this case. However, understandably, the city staff didn't want to make a definite decision on how that rule works. But I do know that they did decide that in the city of Woodfin. There was a farmer there that had a similar problem. So anyway, I guess what I'd like to say is that managing wildlife is a normal part of farming that all farmers everywhere do. And I feel strongly that amending this ordinance would be in accordance with the city's food action plan. So I guess what I'm hoping for today is that we can get a majority of council to ask staff to draft language that would amend the ordinance that could then be, I guess, voted on at a future meeting. But because it's time sensitive, they told me instead of getting on the agenda and waiting for all that, to just come and do this during the public comment period. So.
Okay. Council, we've gotten several emails about this as well. So I'm not sure logistically how this would work, but the request is to be able to shoot deer with bow and arrow in the city limits.
The request is that we are able to shoot deer in the city with bows and arrows on bona fide farms, which is a legal technical definition that usually includes, farms that are larger than 10 acres. I think the rule to
You're using the word bona fide farm in the legal sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Which like to get present use value, I think you have to be at least 10 acres and generate at least $10,000 in farm, something like that. So
you're going down like a tax rabbit hole. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you define bona fide, but it is a technical legal definition. So yeah.
Okay. So if council's inclined, I would assume that this would have to be looked at public safety.
Okay.
I'm
fine with it.
To look at it.
Looking at it at public safety.
Okay. So what should I do at this point?
Well, I don't know that this is not an indication that there is council support for this, but that I think Councilman Haynes is indicating that he's willing to look at the issue at public safety.
Okay.
I will say, when I got your request, I personally did some of my own research about this because it is an issue, not just for Asheville, but in cities across the nation where there are deer populations increasing significantly. And actually one of the ones I read, which was by a very popular city think tank, said that bow and arrow doesn't actually solve the problem. But I think,
well, I mean, we're working with,
I'm just telling you that this sort of survey of cities across the nation looking at, really cities that are working aggressively to eliminate deer population are taking some pretty extreme measures, which I don't know that our city would want to consider.
Yeah, and that's not all what we're proposing.
No,
we're not trying to eradicate deer from the city. We're trying to redirect their migration patterns into wildlife corridors instead of into our production area. So,
Can I ask a question here?
Do you want to apply this to bears too?
No, my question is,
we hear a lot about bears.
Is there not some way to do this without killing the deer? Being a vegan, it's really hard for me to come out in support of this. I'm happy to hear it at public safety, but you're highly unlikely to get my support. Are there not options that don't involve killing the deer?
There are other options that we can try.
Fencing is the one that this article said would be the most effective.
So we can't really do hard fencing on our farm because of the floodplain ordinance. So we can attempt to do some electric fencing and things like that. But as far as like putting up like a $50,000 hardwire fence, we would be prohibited from the other city ordinances.
So this sounds like this needs a deeper conversation, and maybe the fencing conversation can happen in the context of the review of it at public safety.
Sure.
So, okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Jonathan Wainscott is our next speaker.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Wainscott. I can wrap up the little community engagement meeting that I went down to in South Asheville on Wednesday up really quickly. I don't think you should shame all those people for not showing up. It was 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Way down in South Asheville, rush hour traffic and all that kind of stuff. When I saw that it was announced, it was sort of like, city council wants to hear from you. So I was like, ooh, well, you know, that sounds great. And when I went down there, you know, none of you guys were there except VJ was there for 3 minutes to introduce us to the concept that hiring the city manager is pretty much the most important job that you guys have. And then he was gone, and you guys weren't there, and WLS was there, and none of the other press was there, but I was there. And just to let you know, basically all it is a little primer on Dillon's rule, so that we know that, you know, we can't do everything that we want to do as a city, and then just sort of walk through the paper handout that you can get as the survey, and that's really all that it is. Now, my concern, and the reason I really went down there, thinking that I was going to talk to you guys, was that, you know, you put out this effort to engage in the community in a broader way, inclusiveness, making sure everybody's heard, and then we had 3 meetings, one of them being a doubleheader on one day, and then the other one that's coming up, way down in South Asheville. So you've made it a lot easier for people in South Asheville to get to this, but people in North Asheville and West Asheville, and it wasn't nearly as easy for them to do that. And I know that you don't want to do anything in sort of a northeast, southwest kind of fashion because you don't want to be districted, but this was just a dog and pony show so you could check off community engagement, you know? And we are talking about hiring a city manager, which is the most important job that you guys as city council gets to do. So if you want to hear from us, just come to us instead of making staff go make some thing to then come back and figure out what's going on. It's just convoluted and it doesn't seem like it makes very much sense. In addition to that, I just like kind of an update on our lease with the Asheville tourists. When I was running for council, I asked for a copy of that lease, and you guys all got that. It expired December 31st, 2016. So if we haven't rewritten our lease with the Asheville tourists, they're essentially squatting on our city asset, which is $10 million. And I don't think that that's really conducive of like good asset management by a city manager. So, you know, if we're talking about squeezing dollars out of anywhere that we possibly can, I would like to see the city council charge the Asheville tourists a reasonable rent, which of course they're not going to want to pay, but then they can go to the Buncombe County Tourism Development Authority and their mountain of money, and then we can get some direct benefit from our assets. Thank you.
Rondell Lance is signed up next.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officer Memorial Day and the calendar week as National Police Officer Week. Today in Washington, D.C., thousands of law enforcement officers gather on the Capitol lawn, along with congressmen and senators and president, to honor and memorialize the family members of those lost in line of duty in 2017. 135 officers lost their life in line of duty, 46 were shot. Sons, daughters, mothers, dads, grandparents all received the support of our nation today, and it was showered with love and support. One of the females that was killed in 2017, her family was called up to the stage today with her 3 kids. Detective Familia from New York PD shot while sitting in her car. They had her family come on stage and her 3 children as the nation honored the families today. Already this year in 2018, we have 54 officers that have been killed in the line of duty. 27 been killed by gunshot. I've been to the memorial many times. I was there last year. And to see these kids and see them no longer be able to see their mom or their dad or their families. The job that these law enforcement officers do all across our country oftentimes is berated. It is talked down to, made fun of. They are perceived in the most unlikeliest manner. The majority of the men and women in our country are doing their best to do their job to protect and to serve. It was said today of those that died in 2017, it said when danger came and darkness fell, when destruction loomed, they did not flinch, they were not afraid. They lived every day of their lives by that most sacred calling to serve and protect. And that's why these officers do that. I worked counsel for many, many years as an Asheville police officer. Only 2 people ever thanked me for doing my job. That was Maggie, and it was one of them. We take them for granted. We want to sit up here and bash them. But the job these men and women do are needed. I want the citizens to know, if something happens tonight, you're not calling the mayor, you're not calling the city council, you're calling the police officer. And you hope that they get there quick. We just about lost one, an Officer Lamb. I was there with him at the hospital. I talked to his wife. I seen his mother-in-law and father-in-law and hugged them, the tears. Just realize that the job they do takes a sacrifice. And they love this community. They want this community to succeed. They want to take care and protect you. Please don't demonize the law enforcement community that we have in Asheville. Please don't do that. I ask you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabra, oh, you're okay. Craig Loveland.
Good evening, Craig Loveland. I do appreciate the opportunity. 17 years, Asheville police officer. And just want to take an opportunity to talk just briefly about, we talk about crisis and public safety. It's been mentioned many, many times. And I agree, we do have a crisis in public safety. 2.2 officers a month leave the Asheville Police Department. This month, the month of May, in 15 days, we've lost 5. We lost 5 officers because of being overworked, because of overtime, because of not having the resources we need. There's awesome officers here. I've seen a lot happen in 17 years. And I think it's important that you understand that the actions of a few that have happened recently are not what the rest of us are doing. It is important for us to know and have your support. And you're right, there is a crisis. But the crisis is how are we going to keep that from happening? How are you going to stop 2.2 officers a month? How are you going to stop 5 officers in May? It's not going to change unless you help us. So we need your help. You know, those of us that do our jobs, for instance, the Kayla officers or the Kayla young people that came up, I'd say 90% of them at Asheville High School or the SILSA program. That's my kids. I spent the last 4 years at Asheville High School. I do urge you, some people have said, do they trust the police? I urge you to ask them, do they trust Officer Loveland? Do they trust Officer Jones? And I assure you they do. And it's the work that we have put in that community with those kids. And there's one sitting back here. Feel free to ask him. In the end, those that do good work, those of us that do good work, you're going to wear us out. We're going to work too much. What are you going to do? There's a crisis. Listen, open up the body cam footage. Because those of us that are doing our job, you'll see that. And that's the majority. What are you going to do to help us get to a point where we're going to be proud again of the Asheville Police Department?
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Ashley Cooper.
Hi, council members and mayor. I'm a visual person, so I brought y'all a little picture. Right up here. So
I want to thank you for moving forward. I want to thank you for the ways that you today have acknowledged the value of what public input has brought, the ways that you've acknowledged the importance of process and transparency and sticking to process, the ways that you're bringing legislature forward that's important to make moves to the larger state. I do agree that we're in a crisis moment, and I also agree that we need partnership with all of the good people that are in this community. So whether it's officers that are doing good and community members who are showing up and doing good, because there is a real lack of trust. And it seems like tonight we've also really seen that we're in a unique transitional moment where really effective leadership is needed. And in addition to crisis, we're also in an interim time. And we've seen, jokes tonight about, I don't even know what your title is anymore. We have no idea what the concerns are. There was a moment when you said about how y'all really agree with what Patrick was saying, but then what's the next steps? And it just gets passed to city management. And I think at this moment, when there is an interim management system that was not set up to run the way it's running right now. We lost somebody, and now everybody's scrambling to fill the places, and at the same time, we're in crisis, things are slipping through the cracks. So I think that your leadership of council, I understand that we have a council manager system, and it's set up to work that way, and hopefully when we have our new city manager that's like ready to be in their role, it will work that way. But for this moment, it feels like your leadership and your effective leadership is needed in some ways that it's maybe not needed at other times when things are operating as they need to operate. Because people not being responded to, people bringing up really essential issues, it taking the timeline, like we need timelines of things being, when things are being brought to you and when they're actually being delivered upon. What are your priorities, your strategic priorities, and how are those strategic priorities really being addressed? I think that there's, I have down on there, like, what's the internal accountability within your system? It's really essential right now. So I think another part about in this time, leaning on the community partnership is really essential. Y'all stepping up in leadership, but also leaning on the community. So when it comes to passing policies, that's great, that's your role. But how to actually implement those in the community, you need to be in partnership with us. People have a lot of knowledge here. I mean, again, the Code for Asheville demonstrates how to drill down into the policy to actually put it into practice in a community, how to bring in more concrete community engagement so that folks are actually a part of partnering, not just engaging.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all want this for your office?
The next person I've signed up to speak is Michael Napolitano.
Good evening. I'm Michael Thomas Marco Napolitano. Obviously, I'm not a native, okay? Now, I'm the owner and operator of Manicomio Pizza at 27 Biltmore Ave. So I'm right in the heart of downtown. And Manicomio in Italian means madhouse, crazy. I'm beginning to think at 65 years old when I invested my money in this place, maybe I was crazy. I've got just a constant problem of homeless people and drug use in that block of 27 Biltmore. And it's not like it's a sporadic, it's a constant thing. I've got a huge deck that sits 80 people. I've even hired a police officer 1 or 2 nights to have somebody on the deck to keep an eye on people coming in begging for food, using my men's room, my ladies' room to use drugs, take baths in my sinks. I come in the morning, and twice they've defecated in my alcove of my building. At 7:30 at night on a Wednesday night, I had to go outside, and there was a gentleman literally peeing on my wall on 27 Biltmore. It wasn't like he was on the side of my building, he was on the front of my building. For this, I need your help and more police officers that are working that strip from Pack Square that sometimes looks like a homeless camp. At 65 years old, I invested my life savings into Asheville. I expect Asheville to come back and invest something into me. I'm not a well-educated man. I quit school in 9th grade. I've been in the restaurant business most of my life. What I'm asking you people is to do your job and give me some protection in there. I don't like being broke. Failure is not an option for me at 66 years old now. I've only lived in this city 3 years, but I love Asheville. But I want Asheville to love me a little bit. I don't think it's my job at 66 years old to constantly have guys sitting in front of my restaurant smoking weed and abusing drugs. I try to run a family restaurant. If there's weed being smoked outside, obviously my exhaust fans suck it inside and people come in, they think I'm smoking it. And I tell them, no, I only do that when I'm home. So my thing is, I need some support in that area, and it's not just me. It's a lot of other business owners, and we're talking about all getting together and coming to the next meeting. But this is what we need. We need more police officers to helping us out down there because it's a problem that's just getting out of hand. Thank you.
I will offer that a couple of years ago, some of us went on the visit to Fort Collins, Colorado. It was one of the annual trips to another city where you take kind of a deep dive look. And they have an interesting program where the city helps fund a nonprofit that trains folks who can respond to calls from business owners like you that are interacting with a chronically homeless population or a traveler, and instead of having that be a police interaction, that is an interaction that involves helping folks find resources that may better suit them. It would address your concern as well, but also meet the needs of those folks involved. And Kathy Ball, since she's stepped into this role as interim manager, has picked up that idea and run with it, and we're now actually moving on it where nothing was happening before. So anyway, we have heard your concern before, and we're trying to find a way to address it that is not an additional burden to police or a law enforcement answer to the issue, but nonetheless.
I appreciate everything you've said. I want you to know I'm not a heartless SOB, but I have hired several of these people and given them the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Twice they've walked out on me with no notice or anything, once in the middle of their shift. So it's nice to talk about placement and helping people out, but let's use the Bible and say God helps those who help themselves. A lot of these people aren't interested in helping themselves or anybody else. They're looking for a free handout from whoever will give it to them. Thank you.
The last person I have signed up to speak is Becca Nestler.
I wasn't supposed to have to speak, so I'm not prepared. I did just want to say that kind of I just feel like really unheard by, Stephen got up and spoke, and we've been going around and about with everybody on city council and city staff and other people in the sustainability office and the attorney and all these people for I think at least a month, and trying to get some movement on this issue. And it's a public safety ordinance. It's not about whether we agree or disagree with killing animals. Stephen's also vegan for a long time. Our farm is in the city for, I feel like, a good reason, and we're trying to create an agriculture, food environment that involves producing produce and creating a good ecosystem and environment for produce and for animals. It's not, we're trying to kill a bunch of deer. But I just feel like it's your job to move a meeting along, and you do a really good job at running a meeting, but it was kind of like push it off to something else, and it just didn't feel fair, and it didn't feel good. And I'm not a speech person. This is not our environment. And I don't really know exactly what to say because I wasn't planning to speak, but just that this is our forum to talk with you people, and you've all had really long days, and we've all had a really long day, and unfortunately, it's 8 o'clock at night and we're still here, but this is our only way to engage with you. And I just want to, make sure that I walk away feeling good about that, and you walk away feeling good about that, and I did not, so here I am. I don't know. A lot of farms are outside city limits, and I feel like somehow we got lucky enough to farm in the city limits, and that makes our food more accessible to more people in a different way than farms that are outside the city. And we run into a lot of hurdles because of that city limit, and I don't want Asheville to but I don't want Asheville to lose, the opportunity for local food because of that. So, yes.
Thank you for saying what you said. And I will offer that Brian is going to consider it at public safety, and I'm sorry we're not able to just make a decision tonight during the public comment period. We don't typically make changes to laws spur of the moment during the public comment period.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. But I think the suggestion from the attorney was to draft language that would amend the ordinance for a farm.
Right. So that's what would ultimately have to happen if council wanted that
if you wanted that to happen.
Right. So in order to start that process, we'll need to go to public safety so they can kind of look at the issue on a deeper level. I will tell you, knowing this city and sitting in these meetings now since 2009, a suggestion to hunt deer with bow and arrow even on farmland will be something that people want to weigh in on.
I know.
Yeah, so we're going to have to, we're going to have to proceed through our committee process, which is a little, it's lengthy and people
And of course we're willing to do that. It just wasn't what was expected from all of the talk that we've had already. And
you're saying that
the
language, the suggestion was to have the city attorney draft language that would not need to be considered by council?
No. The suggestion was that we allow the city attorney to move forward with drafting language that is not changed. There's no law being changed at this time. It's just to have the language prepared to be considered at a future meeting.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all we're.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I mean, it's just
Anybody could draft it, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
That's just the idea that it would need to be changed.
Right. So what the city attorney is saying, ultimately what you're talking about is proposing an amendment to an ordinance. Mm-hmm. She was simply saying that someone would have to draft the amendment to the ordinance. Yes. That the hope, I think, was that this council tonight would ask the city attorney to go ahead and draft that amendment to the ordinance.
I think that was the,
yes,
of course, that was the hope. And of course, you can say no for all kinds of reasons. And that's not the point of me talking. The point of me talking was just really to say that did not feel good. That was the way that was handled.
And I'm sorry. I'm not, I don't think this council is prepared tonight to direct the city staff to begin preparing that amendment, if I'm sensing the council correctly, but they are willing to begin that conversation at the Public Safety Subcommittee of Council.
And can I speak?
Yeah.
I hope that I didn't make lightly of what you're requesting, because I didn't mean to do that. I greatly admire what you're doing.
Okay, that helps.
And I would love for the city to be able to help in some manner to alleviate your deer problem. But again, killing them is probably not the way I want to go, but I'm willing to listen to any alternatives.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak, and but if you have not already waived your time and you would like to speak, yes, Amy.
I'm Reverend Amy Cantrell. I want to thank you for your service and forgive my voice, but I feel like I'm alarmed and I want to speak if I can. We need to eliminate the $1.2 million increase to the Asheville Police Department. We have almost 1,000 signatures for that. If not now, when? We are in treacherous waters. I hear APD officers saying they're overworked. And I think we have to look at what APD is doing, their job description, as you just did with the gentleman that is struggling with a homeless population that I love and who are my family. Because we are sending people that don't have the tools to do the job. We need to send folks, and y'all know that as well. You're looking into Fort Collins, and I thank you for that. If not now, when? When we have seen the consequences of over-policing and racial bias, policing the poor, walking while black, and police brutality writ large with the horrific beating and electrocuting of Mr. Johnny Rush. If not now, when a man begged over and over, "I can't breathe." If not now, when the soul of our city has been laid bare and found wanting. If not now, we are in a crisis. If not now, what did you feel when you watched the beating of Johnny Rush? This story is a micro story of the macro story of poor people and people of color in Asheville being over-policed, and that decision is in your hands. By the city's own numbers, we are over-policed. Before this year is out, we will be the second highest police city in the state, the second highest, way higher than the national average, much higher than the tourist town of Wilmington and other comparable communities. If not now, low-cost, no-cost solutions, written consent, homeless voice, policy recommendations. If not now, yes to your legislative agenda, yes, yes, yes. If not now, accountability through open data. If not now, budgets are moral documents, and budget choices are ours. If not now, when? Those accountability measures that you're calling for are important, but they are on the back end. Can we have the foresight on the front end to stop over-policing, to look at the job descriptions of overworked police, and to see the results of over-policing have enormous human costs and resource costs to the city? We're worried about getting sued around public data, but we are being sued right now because of over-policing. If not now, when? If not now. With eliminating the 1.2 million increase, this is my last sentence, the APD, we could have an entirely fare-free bus system and be able to have $400,000 for a people's budget and join cities across the country in participatory budgeting. We need $1 million for the people. If not now, when?
Thank you. Anybody else that did not already speak? Yes?
Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about that. But, you know, on transparency, on the open data proposal, I do want to thank council for providing me the opportunity to speak, for hearing my concerns, for hearing what the community is saying. This is very important, and I'm pushing very hard on this because I think it is very important. I do believe that we have a crisis of confidence, a crisis of trust between the public and the police department, and that harms all of our officers who are doing the right thing. Because when we don't put data out there, people assume it says the worst possible thing it could. The only way to fix that, and then that's not fair, but that's the truth. The way to fix that is to be transparent. And that's all I have to say on Code for Asheville's proposal. One other thing as we move to create the HRCA. I met with Dr. Dwight Mullen of UNCA recently, and I was talking with him, and I was thinking of how he presented the state of Black Asheville to the Buncombe County Commissioners, how those numbers caused them to take really bold actions to fund community-driven solutions. And I asked him, have you ever been invited to present here? And he had not. It seems like the most common sense in the world that the state of Black Asheville, which they recently completed a new report on, should be heard in this chamber. So I would encourage you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, and we actually don't have a closed session tonight, so anybody else have any announcements? Anything? This feels so weird, we're not going to have a closed session. No, we don't have a closed